Welcome to episode 3, I think, of the Real Talk podcast. I got to sit down with my good friend Suzanne, who also lives out here in the good old Portland area. We talked about her time in Germany and just youth ministry and all kinds of fun stuff together. So I hope you guys enjoy our conversation. All right. There we go. We are ready, rocking and rolling, Suzanne.
Very good.
There you go.
Those feel more like formal now. There's something listening.
There is something listening. There's eventually somebody.
I mean, that's true.
I think I have like 3 downloads. So,
wow.
And one of those was my buddy Brandon, and I'm pretty sure one of them was me because I just wanted to check and see if it was on Spotify. So,
a third of my downloads is me.
Yeah, but there's 3, so that's good. All right, well, introduce yourself.
So. Hello, I'm Suzanne. What about me? I do Young Life, and I work for a school right now as an IA, so I get to hang out with teenagers all the time.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a good time.
There you go.
It's the best time.
It is the best time. There you go. So, as I told Haley, this is literally just for my own enjoyment and my friends, if anybody would care to ever listen. But, yeah, it's essentially just kind of hanging out and talking while my dog is unbelievably interested in what you're doing. I don't know. She is so focused. Thank you. There you go. So, Suzanne, tell me, okay, because obviously we know each other through, we know each other through the church I work at.
Yes.
But you, I don't know, because I didn't even get to meet you until, like, almost a year into me being here. Because, like, you didn't get back until when?
I was here in December of 2020 for Christmas, and I, met you. And we were, gonna grab coffee, and then it,
didn't happen. Yes, I remember that, yeah.
And then I moved back permanently in June of 2021.
There you go. Okay, yeah, so there's so many, we see each other, every week, and we, I know a lot about just, your daily life and little, bits and pieces of your history, but, I have almost no idea about, I guess your background of how you got into ministry and how you ended up in Germany and
True.
I don't know. So yeah.
Well, I grew up in the church that you work at, so that's my church and my dad's church before him and his dad's before him and his dad. Yeah, so my dad's parents met in our youth group, the youth group that the church has. He was at that point there was a president and all that stuff. There was a council of youth.
Wow.
And so my grandpa was the president of the youth group and my grandmother was the secretary of the youth group. And
wow.
They're very cute. And both of their families also attended our church, so it's at least one generation back from there. So I think I'm at least maybe 4th or 5th generation at a church.
Wow.
So the giant stained glass windows in the back were money that was donated, or made from money that was donated from my grandmother's mother when she passed, because it was her church too, and it was it's this huge big family thing.
Wow.
So that's why we go to the church that we go to.
There's a lot of history there.
Got it.
Yeah.
My parents when they found out that they were pregnant and stuff, they had always decided that they were going to stop doing the we're Christian but we don't go to church thing. So they got pregnant and moved up from Southern California. They were living in Pasadena area, and then they were here, and so they started going back to my dad's church because that's where all the family was.
Yeah.
So, I guess I started deciding that I wanted to do ministry in high school. Partly because we're super involved in Young Life. I've been doing Young Life since I was in 6th grade. Partly because my aunt is in charge of it, so
that's fair.
if she's gonna host something, I'm gonna go.
For sure.
And it was a lot of fun anyways. And then when we got to high school, Like, Young Life was not for me as a student. Like, it's crazy. Everything's happening all the time. Like, not about it. But being the person that's driving the crazy, I'm totally about.
Yeah.
So, like, my freshman year of high school, I started leading wildlife. So I was, like, 14, and I started, like, being a leader for 6th graders at the time. And that was great. I loved being a part of the chaos and, like, creating the chaos for the kids. Like, that part of it was great. And then at, like, 16 or so, I realized that, like, I could probably do this more full time, and that also, like, I hadn't had a lot of really good, like, direction in my faith, and I, being the stubborn person that I am, was like, I can do better. So that's my origin story, and everything kind of, like, went that way from there. So it was a whole big, I could do better than the people that didn't do a good job teaching me or raising me in the church. Because there's no reason, like, that being in the church and, like, being raised a Christian kid doesn't mean that you don't still need, like, guidance and leadership and someone to, like, partner with you and mentor you. But it really, at least felt like that was how it had been for me. It was like I had, like, a big saved stamped on my forehead, and, like, that was good enough for the church. And for me, really wasn't.
Well, honestly, I feel like that's one thing that really bugs me a lot about, like, on the modern day church, and, like, it's, like, the lack of, like, discipleship and, like, the lack of importance that people put on that. It's like, you can, like, oh yeah, like, we have, like, a fellowship thing that we did today, or, like, hey, we raised some money for the kids. And I'm like, as a youth pastor, I'm like, yeah, like, it's great that we did stuff, like, as a church, and the kids see other people, and that the church, like, cares and sees our youth group and supports it, like, in, you know, whatever way they want to. That's great. But, like, these kids, like, I can't, like, intentionally disciple every single one of these kids without, like, not doing my job. Like, I mean, it's technically my job, but also it's, like, kind of not.
No, I mean, it's actually really not. Like, your job as, like, a youth pastor is almost to live into the adults that will live into them.
Well, and that's, 100%. I if the parents were doing it, then I would love to, like, not
well, not
be
even
doing
parents.
it.
It doesn't even need to be parents. Like, it can be, I mean, our church is really small, so it's hard for it to be other people besides parents, but it could be other people in the congregation that want to love on the youth, and so you, like,
take some time to invest in a kid and, like, see where they're at. And,
one of my professors in college had this, like, analogy that I think is just super, super real, of, like, a one-eared Mickey Mouse. So you have, like, the church, and then, like, instead of having, like, 2 ears, obviously, there's just one, and the one ear is the youth. And so there's the church, and it's doing its thing, and it's working well, and then out here, like, connected but separate is the youth, and they're doing their thing. And I was thinking about the other day you mentioned, like, the adults were like, oh, it's so good to see the youth, to, like, be able to interact with the youth, and that was, like, that triggered the memory of the one-eared Mickey Mouse, because that's what adults always say in the congregation, and it's like adults don't realize that they could come see the youth. Like, it doesn't have to be
them come to you.
They don't have to come to you. Like, they should come to you. Like,
for
we
sure.
would love a, like, area where that's possible, but it does not have to be a one-way street. Like, you can make an effort to. But,
it's definitely an interesting thing. Okay, so so you went from volunteering and leading in Young Life,
and I kept doing that. So I'm, like, 16 now, deciding that I want to be, like, a youth pastor, and so I, like, saw senior year. I was only 17 my senior year of high school. So I'm, like, applying to schools. The only school I applied to was George Fox, and I got an early decision, and I was done, and that was cool.
There you go.
And I was, like, super ready, and I was going to do, like, Christian ministries and stuff, and, like, work in a church. Like, that was the end goal, was to be, like, in a church. Working with youth, like, church to youth. And, like, doing outreach as need as well, but, like, I really wanted to work with in-house kiddos. Which is why it's really funny that, like, I don't work with in-house kiddos now. It's kind of like a never say never thing for me. And then I, at the time, was dating this absolute piece of work of a human, really, truly. He was very opposite from me in a lot of ways, because, like, I obviously really like to travel. I've been a lot of places, and that's a really big part of who I am, and I just wasn't doing a lot of that when we were together, because it was very, like, not something that he wanted to do at all, so it got a lot of, like, friction. And so when I went into college, I was like, yep, won't study abroad, won't do any of that, because I don't want to be gone for that long from, like, this person who, like, I was, like, younger self was pretty convinced I would end up marrying, and was like, that's just not something that aligns for us, so I just won't do it, blah, 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 whatever. And then still doing. He and I dated until like the end of my junior year of college, and he was a year behind me in school.
Yeah.
But my junior year, or like that time frame, we got a new area director for Young Life. His name is Nick, and he had been working for Youth Compass, which is the company I ended up working for in Germany, in Dusseldorf.
Okay.
And he was talking about living abroad and getting to work with international kids and all this stuff, and I was like, I would like to do that.
Yeah. You're like, yes, please.
I would very much like to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I didn't study abroad, and I was beginning to kind of regret getting to have that experience, and I didn't like. I don't know. I wanted to live outside of like. I mean, because I grew up in Canby, I went to school 20 miles away, and like I had a bubble. Like I very much had a bubble, and I liked my bubble, but I wanted to know like really what was beyond that.
Yeah.
So my junior year, I like started getting connected with Nick about that specifically, and Nick was like, "Oh, I know a guy. I'll hook you up with him." And like the next day, Nick's contact was like, "Hi, you want to come work with us?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Cool, great.
Dang.
See you when you graduate."
Dang.
Yeah,
bro.
and I was like, "Oh,
wow,
cool,
dude, that's wild."
Yeah, and this was probably in like maybe like the end of fall term, so like maybe November, December of like my junior year of college.
Wow.
So like I had a job lined up.
Yeah.
Like
for the whole
the entire senior year. Wow. Like it was crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah. And it was supposed to just be kind of like a 9-ish month internship.
Yeah.
So I graduated from college, broke up with a questionable boyfriend after my junior year because I think Germany was really the thing that kind of like really landed home, but we were just
that different,
vastly different, and then he made some very poor choices in the summer as well that like just nail in his coffin.
Yeah.
And then I moved in like September of 2019. Very, very suddenly, very just like and lived there for what was supposed to be 9 months. It was my first time ever finding like an apartment on my own, because in college I lived in dorm housing for 3 years, and then my senior year I moved in with Mads and Katie, so two of my best friends. Yeah. And to an apartment they already had. They'd already lived there for a year. So they found the apartment.
Oh, and this is with the roommate that was like there before that you kind of, but it was like ended up.
Yeah. The one that like left all of her, just all of her stuff everywhere. And we were literally moving out after graduation and like still finding stuff that like
she just left.
None of it wasn't any of ours. Like we were like it kept getting passed around to like other people's piles, and we'd like find it. What is this?
Gotcha.
And then finally, it was like an arrow sign. Like it had some like inspirational saying on it. Yeah, a little arrow, like keep moving forward or something. Yeah. And it just kept getting like passed around to all of us, and eventually someone was like, "Is this not yours?" And we're like, "No, I thought it." And I was like, "Oh, it was Maddie's."
That's hilarious.
Okay,
that's hilarious.
Cool. So yeah, that was that room.
Gotcha.
But, yeah, so I'd never found my own apartment before. I never had to do that. So I bounced back and forth between dorm housing and like living at home for summers. And that was what I did. And so I had to like find my own apartment in Germany. I don't speak. Well, I do speak German, but I didn't speak like that much German.
Yeah, not enough to like be fluent and have a conversation and like ask questions.
And like I had no idea even how to like find apartments. Like I don't even like there's no apartments.com.
Yeah.
Like Zillow, no apartments.com.
Yeah, you're just
like
apartments ? Apartments?
Where
are you?
I didn't even know what the German word for apartment was. Like
what is it?
Wohngemeinschaft is like what I was looking at.
Okay.
Wohngemeinschaft. So that means like together, like live. Basically, those are like apartments where people already live. Yeah. And so we call them VGAs. So VG, VGay. VGay. Because W makes the V sound, and the G kind of makes the gay sound. So VGay. And so, yeah. I mean, I guess technically it's called like a Wohnzimmer, which is so like your living house, living room type. Gotcha. Wohnen, but Wohngemeinschaft, because living together with people, because I couldn't live by myself. Like, I was a missionary on like a very minimal budget. Like that wasn't gonna happen.
That's awesome.
So, so I was like looking around and just kind of like messaging people, and the website's called VG Gesucht, which is Gesucht means like search.
Okay, yeah. So house
shared
search.
apartment looking.
Yeah.
So
That's hilarious. Wow.
yeah, I looked for places for a couple of months and finally moved in like December. I think so. I moved in September, and then like end of November, beginning of December, I like moved into my own place, like with roommates and stuff, and had to like find furniture, which was really random. Like
Dude.
it was crazy.
All in a foreign country.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is wild.
So thankfully, like the international community I worked with, like I got like a good amount of like free furniture.
Oh, okay.
So I ended up with like a pretty nice bed from like IKEA that like my bosses had that they weren't using. It was just in storage. They kept trying to sell it and nobody would take it. So they just eventually were like, here you go.
They're like, we need to get rid of this.
Yeah.
Just take it.
I mean, I did live on the 6th floor though of a walk-up, so that sucked.
My gosh. 6th floor?
Yeah, of a walk-up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No freaking way, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious but horrible.
So we had to take the bed all the way up, 6 flights, and then I had a dresser, like a 4-thing dresser that was like already put together, like someone just gave it to me, and so we had to carry the dresser up 6 flights.
Oh my gosh.
And I ended up, someone gave me a really nice desk, because Germany has these weird regulations for how big your desk can be at work.
What?
It has to be a certain size. I don't know. The desk was too small to meet Germany's specific regulations for how big a desk in an office building could be. But they already like bought them and put them together. So our chair, like our board chair's wife had brought it home, and she's like, I don't have use for it. Do you want it? And I was like, I mean, yeah.
That's wild.
So I ended up with this really nice desk, like barely used, super nice, like awesome desk.
Yeah.
That we had to carry up 6 flights of stairs. So, yeah. But it was nice. Like, it was a really nice apartment. I was in like a really nice part of town. It's called Pempelfort, which is it's in Dusseldorf. It's called Pempelfort. So it's a really nice part of the city. It's like a 15-minute walk to like the city center. So like I could walk everywhere.
Yeah.
There's trains like fairly accessible.
It's like a 10-minute walk down, and then
Yeah, and then you're Yeah. But it was really nice. Like, it was a really nice part of the city, so it was super safe.
Yeah.
And then our apartment itself, I lived with 2 guys. Their names were Marco and Doe. So Marco's German. He's from, like, North Germany called Hamburg. And Doe is South African, but white.
Okay.
Which definitely, like, adds to the, like, layer of, like...
unique hodgepodge you got there.
Yeah. So we got, like, a South African who lived part of his life in the UAE. Because his parents got divorced and his mom moved there, and so he would like did some of his schooling there and then did college in South Africa and then moved to Germany. And then and then Marco's parents are Greek and German. So and then there's the American, and then Doe's girlfriend was over all the time, and she was Austrian. So yeah.
So do you know how Doe ended up in Germany? Like
he was just looking for like international employment. And he he does, like, shipping logistics.
Oh, okay.
And so he ended up working for a company that did, like, it's like a 2-year internship type thing.
Yeah.
Where you, like, spend 6 months in 4 different sections of the company. So he did, like, land shipping, air shipping, like, freight water shipping, and then, like, something else for, like, 2 years. And then I think he ended up taking a position with the company, but 2 years is a really good amount of time to be with a company for. It looks really good. Plus you learn, it's a well-known company, and you learn like a lot about
like what they do
and how to do it well. So that was what he did. And then he met his girlfriend
while he was there.
She actually used to also live in our apartment, and then they started dating, and then she moved out.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so it was great.
Wow.
She was a good friend of mine too. Her name is Nika. She was a baker.
You know what's funny? I have a friend of mine who, like an old friend, I guess you could say. Her name was Nika, and her family, I think they were Greek. Like they had a lot of like Greek influence in their family. I feel like it's Nicola was her full name, but like, was it? I think I might be remembering this wrong. I don't know, but she was this. Yeah, she was just an acquaintance of mine that I had in college. Nothing like weird happened, but like I remember I kind of thought I was gonna have a thing with her. But, but that was like in my like in between, like still searching and just figuring things out, and then like that's when I started working at camp later on. But like I remember. Oh, that's how I met her. I was in college, and she was the young adults group at my church. That I grew up with.
Okay,
Yeah. And she was a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the only person I've ever known with the name Nika.
Yeah.
Like that at all. But I think I always assumed it was like some kind of Greek something because I think that's
it might be. I don't
know. Well, because okay, I was gonna sound really stupid, but I don't know where Austria is. So it's like it's near Germany.
Yeah,
right?
It's like to the like south west of Germany or southeast of Germany.
Southeast. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's France, it touches Italy.
France, Germany, Italy, yeah.
And then also Hungary, and it's kind of one of those gateway to Eastern Europe countries.
Gotcha.
So they speak German there, unless you ask a German and they don't.
Okay, what would German people say when they say no? They speak some dialect.
They just have they speak the Austrian dialect of
Gotcha.
of German, and they have a really. My brother says that they have a really cute accent. It's just a really kind of
quaint.
I guess
almost?
Maybe provincial almost. The way that they speak it, and they have a few different words for things.
What would be an American equivalent of that? An American says oh yeah, it kind of have a cute accent. Maybe
I kind of think it's the same way that England and the U.S. speak English, and so is Australia,
gotcha.
And we all speak English, but
very differently.
Yeah, and gotcha. Everyone has a few different words, and
but you can go there and have no problem communicating.
Yeah. You might use a different word. I think window is one of the ones that they have a different word for. I don't know what the Austrian word is, but I think that window is one of the words where they have a different word for it, and so you'd understand them, but you'd be oh, maybe
you're did you? Okay, so I think the closest example I think of have is I know bits and pieces of Spanish, and there when I worked at camp,
Spanish and Latin American Spanish maybe.
Yeah, okay, so it was whenever I was at camp, we had a bunch of internationals, and a lot of them were for Central and South America. And there was this one girl who was from Mexico, and there's another girl who was from. I want to say there's one girl from Cuba and then another girl from I don't want to say it wasn't Ecuador, it was Nicaragua.
Okay.
So 3 different places in Central America that you're okay, those are 3. I mean, they're close, but they're very different in certain things.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had said mis patas, but I was talking about my feet.
Yeah.
And so, but technically, and my grandpa's also told me this later on, but patas is actually I think used for animal, your animal feet.
We call Sylvester Senor Petitas.
Oh,
Senor Little Feet.
Yeah, that's cute. Yeah. So, but I've always just said because my family, that's just how we say things. Mis patas, and so you just think about my feet, or and so I said that I was talking to the girl from Nicaragua, and then the other 2 girls I think were ahead of me or behind me, I can't remember. But then one of the girls started laughing when she heard me say that, and then so they started laughing, and they're speaking in Spanish, and then she's laughing because you just said you have animal feet. Yeah. I was what? Yeah. She goes, yeah. To her, I know what you're saying. You're talking about your feet. And she's but to her, that's I mean, it kind of is, but I understand what you're saying. I know that you were just talking about your feet. You weren't saying you have animal feet, but to her, I literally was saying I have animal feet.
Yeah.
And so she was oh, and so she was laughing super hard and loud because she's I'm this very very poor speaking American trying to speak Spanish, and then she's dude, you just said you have animal feet, so I think we're done.
I'd like to end this conversation. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so
it's this thing that for how Fernando's explained it, because I was asking questions when he started calling Sylvester that. It's something that kids can say and is cute, but then when adults start saying it, it's kind of you should know better.
Okay, there you go. So I'm a child. It's fine. There you go. Okay, so it was. What was his name?
Doe. D-O-U-W.
Oh.
Yeah.
Doe. D-O-U-W. Wow, that's a lot of things that aren't being said.
Yes.
Doe. I feel Doe.
I don't know.
I'm not going to figure
that was
it
his
out.
name. He just...
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were there in September 2019. Okay, so...
And I lived there... I lived in that apartment from, December 2019 through June of 2021.
Gotcha. Okay.
Pretty
Wow.
much.
So basically, almost except for the first few months.
Pretty much the entire time I was there. Yeah. And then a few months in the summer of 2020, I lived with my sister in Dresden, but that was just like a few weeks. That was, like a not a super long time
stint.
And then I went back to Dusseldorf to my apartment. So
Dusseldorf.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
So now, okay, you worked with Compass something?
Youth Compass, which is like it is Youth for Christ, Third Culture Kid outreach.
Third Culture Kid?
Yes. So Third Culture Kids, which is who I worked with, are kids that, like Fernando. Fernando's a really good example of this.
Okay.
Who are living outside of their passport country in, like, in another country. So...
Okay.
Typically, we work with Americans who are living abroad, but like not exclusively. Like I actually almost worked with no American kids when I was there. Like I worked with one American kid when I was there. Other than that, I worked with a lot of I had 2 British and German families that we worked with. We had a Finnish Ukrainian family that I worked with. Like dad was Finnish, mom's Ukrainian. And then we lived in Germany. One of the kids had like 5 passports.
Jeez. How's that possible?
Well, he gets a Finnish passport because his dad's Finnish. He gets a Ukrainian passport because his mom's Ukrainian. She might not be Ukrainian. That's what's sticking in my brain, but could be because of current events.
It's okay. No one is fact checking it right now. All 3 of the download people.
I know he's gonna hear it and he's gonna come for me.
He's gonna be like that Real Talk podcast 10 years ago. Yeah, do you remember that?
Dale's gonna be offended.
Okay, so
it's fine.
Yeah.
And then. They lived in Germany for a certain amount of years, and so his parents had German citizenship, so they got German citizenship.
Okay.
And then the oldest kiddo, his parents were living in Chicago when he was born.
Oh, wow.
So he has the U.S. passport. So he has U.S. citizenship, and none of the rest of his family does.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
I think that's Sven. I think Sven has at least 4 nationalities.
That's crazy.
That he can claim.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what's even wilder is the fact, I think it holds less power now, but definitely like 10 years ago it was a lot more so. But I know a U.S. passport holds a lot of weight.
Oh, it is a hefty passport.
And to get it, I know if you're not if you're trying to get it as someone who's not a citizen is it's really hard. But the fact that he has that plus those other ones, is
and none of his family has them. So he has a U.S. passport, so that gets him access in and out of the U.S. at will. He has an EU passport with the Germany passport, so that gives him access throughout the entire Schengen zone. Yeah, freely.
That's crazy.
He has a Finnish passport. I believe it's Finnish. It could be another Scandinavian country. He's gonna come for me.
They're all white people approaching
but that's not an EU country, but it's or maybe it is an EU country, but it's still a strong country to have a passport from. It's a mid tier.
I don't think they're.
He's not an Eastern European.
Okay, I think they're part of the EU, but they're not part of NATO.
I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I know about that is because I think I was listening to a political podcast the other day.
Wow. I'm so proud of you.
I was listening to... Hey! For everybody who's wondering, my dog is barking off in the distance at somebody. Yeah, she's all huffing and puffing. But yeah, so they were talking about the fact that Finland and, I think, Switzerland are trying to join NATO, which are typically... 2 neutral countries, but that's actually a non-neutral move. So they broke their neutrality.
Switzerland was also trying to. I knew that Finland was.
I know Switzerland for sure is, and that's why.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
And that's why, because technically they already broke their neutrality. Trying to help Ukraine.
They imposed sanctions.
Yes,
and that broke their neutrality, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's This
is 21st century.
I know. We'll get into all that a little bit after, okay? Because I don't want to get sidetracked to all that because I have so much that. No one ever talks about that with anybody, and I'm I just want to sit and just can we just discuss what's happening?
Absolutely, I would love to.
But okay, so you worked with
third culture kids,
yes,
which are just the coolest kids in the world. So
I feel they're well traveled. They've seen a lot of the world.
Well traveled. They've lived. Most of them have lived in several countries. they just have such different perspectives on the world than like any other kid I've ever gotten to work with. And we had this kiddo that we worked with, and he, like, they were from Africa. They were like born there and then moved to Germany, and they were such interesting kiddos and like had like such like a heart for like the Lord and stuff. And it was crazy because it came out so differently being like African than like even my white kiddos that were German, or like my white kiddos that were like from other places. It was so cool. So they're really cool kiddos. I loved getting to work with them, and that was like one of the saddest things about leaving. But I did that for 2 years. I was supposed to only be there for 9 months, and then there was a pandemic, so that kind of changed things.
I was gonna say, you got there in September 2019, and then everything hit the fan. So.
Yep, I got to go on exactly one trip that I had planned. I made it to Amsterdam. My ex-boyfriend's little sister came to visit me because she and I are still really good friends. So she came to visit and was there for like a week and a half, and we like took a trip to Amsterdam for like 24 hours. We like stayed overnight in a hostel. We like got there, stayed overnight in a hostel, like explored Amsterdam, and then took a train home.
Dude,
and that was like all we did. It was so fun though.
Yeah.
And then I made it to Copenhagen by myself on my first like solo travel trip.
Yeah.
And I was like super proud of myself. It's kind of boring. I don't really like solo traveling, I've decided. It was really nice because I didn't have to like talk to anybody about what I wanted to do. I ended up like taking a train into Sweden for the day because I could.
Yeah.
There was like a direct train, and my Airbnb host was like, "Oh, there's like this really easy train that you can just like get on. It takes you to Sweden." And I was like, okay.
Yeah. You're like, sure.
Why not? Like, so that was really nice, not having to like talk to anyone or like be like, "Oh, would you be interested in doing this?" Like, should we do something else? But I also was just kind of like, this would be more fun with like a buddy.
Else. Yeah, exactly, for sure.
I wouldn't like rule it out in the future, but like definitely prefer traveling with a buddy.
Yeah.
And I made it to Copenhagen, and then I got back to Germany. That was in January, and then things started ramping up. And then the last thing we did before lockdown was my boss Brianna and her husband had gotten sick with just like a flu.
Yeah.
He just had like it was the flu.
Huh.
We know that for sure now because like, he had no like corona symptoms at all.
Yeah.
We couldn't have known that at the time.
Yeah.
And so we went to the movie theater literally the last day before lockdown. It was a beautiful spring day in like early March, and we saw the movie Onward at the English at the English movie theater, which is like across the city from us and like a part that we never go to, and then like wandered around downtown Dusseldorf and like got takeout and like got bubble tea and like just had a nice little day because she couldn't stand being locked down anymore because they hadn't gone anywhere in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then
everything
shut down, and we had like actual lockdown. So,
dude.
Yeah.
So how was that in Germany, by the way? Like, what was like? How strict was everything?
Very strict. It was super different from here.
Okay.
Like when I came home for Christmas, I was having like some massive culture shock because it was. That's the weirdest thing about this too, is that like, really, my thoughts and feelings on the pandemic aren't American at all because I didn't live here.
Yeah.
Like everything that I knew about the pandemic was German and like in its influence, which is super weird to like. It's a really good way to make you feel like different from your home country and like bonded to your host country.
Yeah.
So we had. In the beginning, we didn't have to wear masks or anything. And then I remember when they imposed the mask mandate, and we had to like scramble to figure out where to find masks.
I know, it was horrible.
Like, I'd know where to find them in the U.S., but like, or like I'd have a general idea of where to go. But like in Germany, we don't have stores like Freddy's. Yeah, where there's like a pharmacy and a deli, and like we don't have stores like that. Yeah, so it's like, okay, do I go to like? Do I go to DM? Can I just go to like Edeka? Do I have to go to like? Is there a pharmacy? Do I have to go to like the Apotheka? Like I don't even know where I would go to find masks. Yeah, and I ended up finding like a few cloth ones from like my local favorite coffee shop.
Oh, nice! There you go.
And I bought 3. I bought one for myself and one for each of my bosses because they also like had no idea. Yeah. But they had a car, so if they needed to, they could get around by car. But I took public transit everywhere and had to happen to be on the train or the bus or anything. Yeah. So, so I like bought them and then like went to their house to give them to them, and so we had masks. And it started with just on trains, and then it started with trains and in stores once the stores reopened. Because there was like a really long period of time in Germany where like the only thing that was open was grocery stores. Yeah. Like. nothing else was open at all.
Yeah.
And like bakeries, but there's like a really long period of time where like the only things that were open were like the DMs, which are like drugstores, and like the like Edeka, Ureva, all of like the grocery stores, and you could only go in like they like locked up all the shopping carts, so you had to have a shopping cart to go into a grocery store, and you could only go in if you had one. So as many shopping carts as there was how many people could go into grocery stores.
Wow.
At a time, yeah.
Dang.
So,
and with in those smaller places, they only have so many too, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like you would be someplace and you'd be like, okay, well, there's more grocery carts, but they'd be like locked up, or there was usually they had like an attendant that worked for the grocery store, like standing at the the front. Like,
I remember that. Yeah.
Like letting people in, or like swapping carts, or like. It was crazy. It was really weird.
I remember, like, as soon as you're saying that, I'm, like, remembering, like, trying to go to Walmart, and they had somebody at the door saying, like, you have to wait. And, like, literally, they'd have, like, people checking in and out. And I was like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Like, Walmart's gigantic, and they're literally like, oh, sorry, we can only have, like, 80 people in the whole store. I'm like, what? Like...
Yeah, that was my life for, like, a year.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that was just reality. I usually, because I was working youth ministry and didn't have like a super set schedule, could go to the grocery store at times of the days where I didn't have to wait.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But yeah, it was like really, really weird. And then like restaurants were open but only for takeout.
Oh yeah.
So that was interesting too. And then like trying to navigate takeout with like, I'm not great at German on the phone, especially when I can't read people's faces.
Gotcha.
And, like,
Gotcha.
So that was a whole thing. And at one point, we had a curfew imposed. This is the next thing that happened. So first it was, like, everything shut down, but we don't have to have face masks. And then it was face masks. And, like, limited numbers of people in stores, in the grocery stores. And then it was face masks outside in high traffic zones.
Okay.
So, like, in downtown, and like, in the Altstadt, city center, like, on Nordstrasse, which is where I lived, of course. Like, and there was, like, zones of the city where you had to have masks on outside.
Wow.
And then it was no more than like so many households were allowed to get together.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so that was a really hard thing on like on like us, like on younger populations, where like especially like unmarried people, where it's like, okay, cool, so like if I got together with like one other household, like that could be my friend Anna, who also lived alone. Now the two of us are together and we're two households. Where like we have like people that went to our church who are married and have kids. They could get together with another family that's married and has kids, and that's like 10 people. Yeah. So that was like a really,
and it's kind of inconsistent for sure.
Yeah, it was really difficult, especially on like younger people, and but for the most part, we were still allowed out in like. We were really blessed with really great weather that winter. So like people were out walking all the time, and you can open carry liquor in Germany.
Oh, okay.
So like. You could, like, there's stands in the park where you can buy beer. So you'd, like, buy, like, a Radler, which is, like, lemonade and beer, and, like, wander around with friends.
Wait,
and, like,
lemonade and beer?
Yeah.
That does not sound like a good combination.
I'll bring you one.
Like, I have, like, obviously lime and, like, my Corona.
Yeah, it's, like, have you ever had, like, it's a really weird name. Have you ever had, like, a Schaffelhofer?
No.
Okay. That's, like, the German brand that they import. It's Schaffenhofer.
Okay.
And it's, like, a grapefruit, like, a sparkling grapefruit and beer. So I'll bring you one.
Okay.
They're really good. They're really nice, like, summer drink. Because they're a bit lighter.
Okay.
So there's, like, less alcohol content, so.
And that's why I like Corona. They're kind of just, like, an easy, like, want a beer. So, yeah. Okay. Okay, so winter, open carry, parks. Sorry.
Yeah. Churches shut down. Our churches shut down fully, which was really weird. They did open back up, but we had to like register to go, and there was like a core group of us that were going to church, which was kind of nice. And there was a point where they like lessened restrictions to the point where like we could go over to people's churches for lunch afterwards. So it was kind of this core group of us would like shift around and like share houses. Yeah, which was really nice.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
Yeah. There was a period of like a month or two where I like did not feed myself on Sundays. Except for like maybe breakfast. Yeah. Because I'd go over to someone's house for lunch, and then Sunday evenings we'd do youth with the kids. And it was just easier if Benji, Brianna, and I were all in the same location. Yeah. So like they would feed me. That's cool. So it was like several months where I just like did not feed myself on Sundays.
Nice.
Yeah. It was great.
Man. That is probably one of the best advantages of being a Christian and having a Christian household or
Right.
like friends. You're just like, everyone's like, hey, let's get together and eat, or hey, let's get some coffee, or hey, like everyone's like taking care of each other. Like
Yeah.
it's just like I mean, that's literally what obviously the body of Christ should be doing.
It's-
Is
yeah,
literally,
exactly,
it's
yeah.
like we should literally be taking care of each other and like, hey, oh dude, yeah, I'll help you with the groceries, or hey man, like come over, we'll feed you. Hey, like you'll take
Yeah.
care. Hey, let's go get some coffee, let's get some ice cream. Like bring the kids over. Like it
Yeah.
should be that communal like relationship. So it's
Yeah,
awesome.
it was great. I loved it. It was just so nice to like be with people, and that was when I like. This was almost a year in though, so this was like starting in the fall of 2021.
Yeah.
I guess no, fall of 2020, and like that was like how long it took for me to like actually even find community though. So that was ridiculous. That was really
Yeah.
difficult, but pandemic did not aid me there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I had like a good like group of women that I was hanging out with, and I had joined a home group. Which is where I get the name for our home group from. Was from like my church in Germany's like that was what they called their small groups. Was small
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah.
And another single woman and I who were in the same home group lived like a block from like not a block but like 5 minutes from each other.
Yeah.
So I would like go over to her house for home group, and I'd like bring snack like sweets and stuff.
Nice.
And so
Yeah,
she and
yeah.
I would join home group together, so it was less like isolated.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I ended up joining a Bible study of hers that was her, Anna. She's it was really cool because we're all like different walks of life, different like, and everyone had a different nationality, and everyone was actually from a different continent. So like,
That's awesome.
there's me and there's Anna, who's she's about 10 years older than me, so like mid-30s and like unmarried, and she's an opera singer, and she's from England.
Wow.
So that's her life, and she lives in Germany. She's one of the principal performers at the Dusseldorf Opera House.
Okay, so she's a British opera singer living in Germany.
Yes.
Going to your church during a pandemic.
Yes.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah. And then there was Pascal, who's from oh good lord, it just left my head.
Pascal.
Yeah, she speaks Arabic. Where is she from?
Oh.
She's from the Middle East. I can't think of her. She's not from Israel. She's from. Her flag has a pine tree on it.
A pine tree?
Yeah, it's like striped and has a pine tree on it.
I don't know flags very well,
can't
and that
remember
one
where
doesn't
she's
seem
from.
any kind of familiar. All right, we're gonna
Yeah,
pine
look
tree
it up.
flags. Pine
That's-
tree flags.
That's Pascal. She's married to Matthew, and they have 3 kids, 3 daughters.
Okay.
And she's about the same-ish age as Anna.
Okay.
So that's good. That was like also like fun, and then there was Eunice, who's from I believe Kenya. She's from Africa, and
Okay.
she's in her 40s and married, but with no children. So it was
Okay.
like the
Gotcha.
4 women and like very different like Lebanon. She's Lebanese.
There you go. Okay. Pine tree.
That's where
flag.
Pascal is from. Yeah. See? It's red and white and red, and it's not a pine tree. But it's a tree, and it
Yeah.
looks evergreenish.
Yeah,
In
I gotcha.
nature.
In nature.
It could be an evergreen
There you
tree,
go.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the Bible study and like the group that I fell in with, and there was like another American couple whose kids are like my age.
Yeah.
And so they were like kind of like mom and dad, and they would like have us over for dinner or lunches, and
Yeah.
they were also in our home group, so
Yeah.
that was really great. But it was at one point we had a curfew imposed on us, but it was more just like after a certain time at night, like don't go out with other people. Like
Yeah.
you can walk by yourself, but don't be out with other people.
Yeah.
And
Because
like
the virus stops at a certain time, so.
yeah, it was really weird. Dusseldorf was lucky. We never really had a whole lot of curfews. My one of my exchange students who he lived with us in America for a year. He was German, and where he lived, they did have like a pretty strict curfew of like 8.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dang.
8 or 9, and
Jeez.
ours was like 11.
Yeah.
So it was like
Yeah, not that bad.
not a big deal.
Yeah. Because very few people are even walking out at 11 at night anyways, so.
Yeah. Well,
I
I did live in a big city,
That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
so yeah. But
You know.
yeah, and then that was pretty much it. I came home for Christmas in 2021 or 2020, and that was like shocking on like my international flights. There was like we're on like one of those big like 242 planes, and there was maybe 50 of us. on the entire flight.
Okay, so that must have been a pretty expensive flight then. Was it more expensive than usual, or was it pretty much?
It's pretty average. I mean, like maybe a little bit more, but there was a point where like flights stopped moving because when I tried to move back, when I originally tried to move back, I had like 5 flights get canceled and then gave up, and that was why I stayed.
Yeah.
But when I came home for Christmas, it was like fairly average-ish, and like because I think at some point the airlines kind of figured out that like they couldn't just not fly.
Yeah.
Like, they couldn't just make flights so expensive that people wouldn't fly, because there are people that needed to be traveling between like America and Europe.
Yeah.
Like my flights had a lot of like military servicemen on them, or servicemen and women who were like going home for leave or coming back from leave, depending on the direction I was going.
Yeah.
So or like business people that had to be doing business, or like internationals like myself. Like there was a point in the pandemic where the airlines realized that they couldn't just not fly if their flights weren't full enough. So they did like lessen the amounts of flights that like moved, and they were only really flying into big cities.
Yeah.
So, but there was like definitely a point in the pandemic where they were like, yeah, we can't just not. That's not an option anymore.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I was gonna say, because I remember there was a bunch of canceled flights, and I don't know, because I didn't really pay attention to that part of it, at least here in the States.
Yeah.
But I know that like, I want to say there's probably only 2 times in my life where like flights overall were basically stopped, and that was like 9/11. Like obviously, because that's like a huge like. Plane just crashed in 3 separate areas, and like we're under attack. Like, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
they're like, all right, all the airways are done, and then I think for at least a time, like at least early on, but I don't know if they actually ever did. But like I know they reduced the flights quite a bit, but because I just know that there was still flights happening, even though it was like breaking out like in China, and then it kind of started spreading and and then it got to Europe, and then it got like everywhere else, and we're like, oh, we're fine, like, you know, I remember like everyone, even the politicians, and obviously Trump was in office, and he's just, you know, talking out his ass, doesn't know what he's saying, but like he's like, oh yeah, it'll burn out, it's fine, it's their problem, and then it's like someone got on a flight from over there over to here, so I know there was still flights happening.
It was just like severely reduced, and it depended on the airlines. Like in my experience, Delta was like always flying and was super reliable. But then like I had tried to fly with Condor, which is a German flight company, who we'd used in the past because they offered direct flights from Frankfurt into Portland.
What?
Yeah.
That's wild.
And then they're like decently priced too. They're like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So we usually would fly with Condor when we could, because I could take a train from Düsseldorf down to Frankfurt for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Yeah. And then get on one flight from Frankfurt to Portland. Wow. So we were trying to fly with them, and then those flights like
obviously
canceled. Yeah, and then Iceland Air I think was flying too. I like them; they're nice. But you always have to stop over in Reykjavik. They like force you to.
Really?
I don't know. Every flight I've ever like flown with them.
Yeah.
First of all, their bulkheads, like their upper bulkheads, are small. So my like rollerboard does not fit, and I get a little. And secondly, you always have to like stop over in Reykjavik because they're trying to increase tourism, and so they'll let you do like multi-day stopovers with like no extra price. Huh. So Dad and I one time coming home we were in a wedding before the pandemic, before I moved. We went over for a wedding for one of our exchange students' older sisters, who's like family, and we went over, and on the way back, Mom had to leave early, and Dad and I stayed a little bit longer, and on the way back we like stayed in Iceland for like an extra like day and a half.
Dang.
And like did this like little tour thing around Iceland.
That's awesome.
We were in like a little van, like a little Sprinter van.
Like
7 of us, and I like conked out.
Oh, gotcha.
Because we'd like been in Germany for like 2 weeks, like going hard.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I was like asked just to sit still in a car.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man,
dang,
this isn't gonna work.
Yeah.
It's really cool though. But yeah. But anyways, yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I remember here we had. Obviously, like the limitations, like everything was shut down except for grocery stores.
Yep.
But like the thing is, like Walmart's kind of a grocery store, but it's like you get like everything from Walmart.
Right,
so
and then
like,
the same with like Freddy's and stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I have almost no point of reference for like Oregon. Like I can talk about like
That's fair.
All I know is Farmington, like in the which is a small, very like. kind of blue collar, like hardworking oil town, and so very much so kind of a, why are you telling me I can't go anywhere? Why are you telling me I can't do this? You know, like, why do I have to put something on my face? And it was like very, very, and because it's such a small town, but there's like such like a small population of people that like they'll like try and protest or something, and they'll protest on Main Street. There's 2 streets, so they like protest on Main Street right by the mall, and that's like there's probably about like maybe 100 people out there, and you're like, all right, cool. Like they're like, I don't want to wear a mask, or they're like, woo, Trump 2020, and you're like, all right, cool. There's like, you know, or like it's just very, and there's like tons of people with like American flags out in their trucks, like driving like just full diesel and flying down the street for no reason. So that was kind of that like town background of it, and so people were not about like staying home, not about like stopping church was a huge thing. Like everybody was like, why aren't we meeting? What are we doing? And even me, like, because like I was meeting with my kids so much and doing so much with my students, like it felt so weird because like obviously we kind of got shut down towards the beginning of March, and I got let go in like May, so like March, April, so about like basically all the way through to like mid-May I was just at home, not really doing much. And like I was like we had a meeting in the morning and a meeting in the evening. We couldn't do youth group, and so we kind of tried to do digital things, and
that sucks.
It's horrible.
We did a full year of Zoom youth group.
It's horrible. Like, and
my least favorite thing. It was so awful.
Well, and we had so when we were meeting, we had like over 100 kids, you know, just hanging out. You're like, okay, that's great, but you're not going to get 100 kids on a Zoom call, especially having that many kids on a Zoom call.
No.
Focused and not making noise, and like it's horrible. And so I really wasn't fully about it, but we tried it a few times. Didn't really pan out super well. But like majority of my time is spent literally just sitting. Like I would get up, I'd have a meeting at 8 a.m. We'd be done by around 8:30 or 9, and then I would like literally sit on my phone in my office and go through a list of like every single grade a different day, and I would just call and text kids all day. And then I literally got to a point where like when I was like done with my day, once I finished all these stuff, and granted, like I still don't mind having conversations and checking up with kids, and so I was like, okay, that's not an issue for me. But it's just constantly being on my phone all the time, and I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, I'm done. I'm done calling. I'm done texting. Like literally thousands and thousands and thousands of calls and texts over. Insane. And I was like, and I remember like, and because that's all I could do. So I was like, I was used to like going out and playing with kids or having kids over, like doing discipleship stuff and checking up. And so
it was crazy.
I only got to meet with my students in that time like 3 times, and even then I wasn't supposed to. And one of those times was when I was leaving. So because by my announcement that I was like leaving was a video to everybody, and I didn't get to say bye to anybody at all. So I really didn't get to have that goodbye like I wanted to, and so the only goodbye I did get was this weird video, and I was like, that sucks. And so I called all my student leaders over, and just some other kids that like I knew were available, and that, you know, and so I called all of them over, and I had about 15 kids, and I was like, hey, so I'm out. And so some of them had already known, and some of them were like, what the hell is going on? And then, so it was kind of this weird deal, and then I basically left the next week because I was like about to have to pay rent for June. So I was like, well, I'm not going to pay rent for an extra month, so I'm out. So then I moved in with my parents, and then that was like when I was in Albuquerque. And so in Albuquerque, that was like pretty much everything was shut down. Takeout only. They're monitoring how many people can be in the building and stuff like that. So, and then in the meantime, I was like looking for a ministry job and wanting to try and find like some work, and kind of was just like really frustrated with everything. And so I was kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to find a job. I don't know if I'm going to do ministry. I don't like, this could be like the Lord just saying, hey, like, this is it. That was it. And I was like, that sucks. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do now. Because, like, I mean, I've worked at plenty of other places, but I didn't finish my culinary degree. So I was like, I could still work in a kitchen and just do that, but it's going to be, like, exactly what I didn't want to do. Or like, it's why I, like, felt like the Lord led me into ministry. It's why I left all that behind. So I was like, do I have to go back to that now? Like, what am I doing? So, yeah. And then obviously, whenever things kind of like started to lighten up a little bit, that's whenever I started looking for a job, and then got a job out here in 2020. So
yeah, no, it was super different.
Excuse me.
It was like really, really weird. I mean, like, and like restrictions loosened up here like way before they did in Germany. Cause, like, I still had restrictions when I left.
Really?
Like, when I left Germany, when I moved home, we were still in restrictions. You still had to like get tested to do different things, and I was getting tested like once or twice a week when I lived in Germany.
Dang.
Because they were free. And there was, like, the little, like, corner bistro under my flat, like, had a testing site. So I'd just go and I'd fill out a little form and they'd, like, swab your nose. And then they'd, like... Oh, yeah, I always got to get ice cream or, like, a sweet treat after I had to get a COVID test because I sucked.
There you go.
And so that was how it worked.
Yeah.
It was my reward. And then I'd, like, wait 5 minutes and they'd, like, bring me my little paper and they'd be like, okay, bye, you don't have COVID. And I could go do whatever I wanted.
Yeah. Did you ever have COVID?
No.
Nice.
I have not yet have COVID.
There you go.
So,
in 2 different countries. So.
Fingers crossed. I know. I moved internationally.
In the middle of everything.
In the middle of everything. And I managed not to get COVID. Actually, like, some of the planes have honestly been some of the places I felt safest. The international planes.
Yeah.
When I was flying home for Christmas, and even in June when I moved, but not as much.
Yeah.
When I flew home at Christmas, I was on a plane with like 50 people. Like a huge
Yeah.
plane that can fit like 300 people. There were
Yeah.
like 50 of us. And I was like, there was like no one near me. I could have like laid down in a full like middle row by myself.
So nice.
Like,
I love when the planes are super empty like that.
Yeah, it was so nice. But when I got on my flight in Atlanta, because that one I flew from Frankfurt to Atlanta and then Atlanta to Portland.
Gotcha.
And when I got to Atlanta and I had to give them like a domestic flight.
Yeah, and you're packed in like sardines.
Oh my gosh, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like so uncomfortable because I've been in Germany too, and like Germans are very much for the common good type people.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, we're wearing masks for others, great. We're doing this for others, cool. Like Germany is like all about that, which is really nice.
Communal, yeah.
There was some, like, anti-corona rallies. There was one that walked down my street, actually. Like, everyone, all my neighbors had, like, their windows open. We're all, like, staring out
like,
at this.
You're like, hey, you see that guy? He's an idiot.
Yeah, it was, like, super interesting.
Yeah. You're like, hey, what's up, Chuck? Like,
Well, I mean, I live 6 stories up. 6 stories up, so I can't yell at them. They can't hear me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, so that was, like, shocking.
Yeah.
Getting on like a domestic flight with like all those people, I was like, I do not like this.
Yeah.
Because I had been in such small groups for like months.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that's always like kind of weirded me out is like once they kind of lighten everything up, then they just slam people on airplanes again. It was like almost like
it was so stressful. It was so like unnerving.
Yeah, I will say I think like it goes to show though, in my opinion, that this is like my perception of things, but like that the filtration systems they do have on the airplanes is actually solid.
Yeah, no, the airplanes
like,
are like I feel like so safe on the airplanes because I know that they're like filtering things.
Yeah,
I'm not worried. Like,
that's like the weirdest
good.
thing is like because there's all these people right next to each other in an airplane for hours at a time in a concealed tube in the air. Like there's no getting out. Like it's just it's all filtered air in there. There's not just like letting it pour in. So it's like okay, but like there's no like outbreaks on like oh this whole plane got coronavirus or oh it's like I mean there's like cruise ships where they had like outbreaks obviously in the beginning where it was like oh god like you know there's all this like horrible corona outbreaks. Okay, that makes sense. It's like people are packed in sardines. Yeah, there's no filtration. You guys are inside of a basically floating casino for you know days on end. It's like of course someone like if someone has it they're gonna give it to everybody. But like when you're packed in a lot closer like and there's still no one's getting it, I was like dang that's like power to them.
Airports whole other story.
Yeah, no, that's
planes totally cool.
Yeah, airports are even before I mean I like flying and I like airports, but also just like I think the whole environment is everything's super expensive. And on top of that, like
everyone's stressed because they're trying to get somewhere.
I was gonna say it's not a relaxing environment.
No, TSA is like staring at you.
Yeah,
like nothing about flying.
Yeah,
is I like getting to the next place, but nothing about the flying part do I enjoy.
Well, especially because like you're carrying all your crap. Like you can't just like you're just like walking around like. Just without a care in the world, you got to watch your stuff. You got to make sure, and you're like, okay, well, I'm hungry. Well, what do they even have? Is it good? And you're like, oh man.
I will say, traveling with, like, Fernando has been great, though. Like, because I kind of just accidentally make him carry everything.
That's hilarious.
Like, we were just in Florida when we were at Disney, and he, like, brought a backpack, and I was not planning on bringing a backpack.
Yeah.
And I had, like, a little, like, a fanny pack or something that I was going to have. And I ended up just putting it also in his backpack. And Fernando just carried everything one of the days. And I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is how this always needs to be. Like, top tier traveling here.
That's awesome. There you go. Okay, so what led you, like, so you were in Germany, you worked with Youth Compass. So besides, like, I don't know if it was a pandemic or, like, kind of how did things lead from, like, Germany to here again? Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting story. So when I was living in Germany, about 6 months in, our national director who ran our Frankfurt branch, like, peaced out.
Okay.
Just, like...
Dipped.
Peaced out, like, left his wife and children in Germany. They're now divorced. Like,
oh my gosh.
Peaced out and left.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was, like, a huge thing. And that was, like, January or February, right before the pandemic.
Wow.
And so his wife, I'm so glad that they left when they did. Because her and the kids were like, she's like, well, do I let them finish out the school year here? Or do I, like, take them home now? And they were moving back to, I think, one of the Carolinas where her parents live with the kids. And she's like, do I go now or do we wait? And she ended up making the decision to leave sooner, which thank God she did, or they would have gotten stuck in Germany in a pandemic.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah. So that whole thing happened, and that left a vacancy in our company for, like, an area that needed to be run. And so when I found out that I wasn't leaving, it was going to end up staying, decided that I would apply for that position and maybe take over and start running the Frankfurt area, which is actually, like, a small town, which is basically, it's essentially like an expat suburb. It's where the big international school is. There's a big international church there, and it's basically an expat suburb.
Yeah.
In a small German town.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, like, as the interim person. And so I would take, like, a trip down to Frankfurt, like, once a month or so to, like, run their clubs and, like, do what I could with them in person or, like, online. And I was running their clubs online and everything. And then ended up getting the position, finding out I got the position right before I came home for Christmas.
Gotcha. And
I was supposed to wait and not say accept or just decline until after I was home for Christmas.
Yeah.
But I got excited because they wanted me, and I said yes, which I should not have done. And so then I came home for Christmas, and there was a lot that, like, went down over Christmas. The most of which was my family's very, like, close, like, we're very big on, like, physical contact as well, and so when I got home and, like, got to, like, hug my parents and, like, spend time with, even when I got home for Christmas, my dad and I quarantined for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Or, like, maybe only 10 days. But my dad and I, like, quarantined away from my mom and my grandmother, just the two of us for 10 days, and just, like, getting to be around him like that, and, like, we built Legos together, and just like getting to go hug my dad whenever I wanted, and when I could be around my mom, just, like, hug my mom whenever I wanted, like, bake together, like, just the family aspect of all of that. Like, when I got back to Germany, I realized I was like, insanely touch starved, had no idea that like I had just, because I'm a really physical person, but, like, a lot of my friends aren't. Yeah. So, like, I tend to, like, I don't, like, really seek it out. I definitely, like, want to be, especially working with youth, too. I want to be very respectful of people's boundaries. So I tend not to seek it out. Yeah. And so, like, getting back to Germany, I was, like, realizing how touch-starved I was. I got really depressed. Like, really depressed. Yeah. And pretty much the weekend I moved back to Germany, like, I was in quarantine again, but, like, it was, like, a weird quarantine. I was supposed to be locked in one room in my friend's house. They were like, it's fine. Yeah, like, you can have the entire house if they come. The government actually came to check on me to make sure I was in quarantine.
No way!
No, like, straight up. They, like, I had to fill out a form that said where I was quarantining.
Man,
and they
Gestapo,
sent,
man.
Yeah. And they, like, sent someone to check on me.
Wow. That's wild.
It was insane. But I was there.
Did you, like, answer the door?
I did not. No. Because I was in quarantine, Gabe. Yeah. I was, like, not answering any doors. I was in my little third floor tower, pretending to be... Yeah. Isolated, yeah. So, but I was there for a while, and, like, I think I was, like, the after the first full week I was there, I like called one of my best friends and was just like, I don't think I can do this.
Yeah.
Because I was supposed to be there for 3 more years. I was supposed to be like still living in Germany now.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I don't think this is right.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Why can I not do this? Like,
Yeah.
and I was like brushing my teeth and praying, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, I have a heart for these kids. I love TCKs. Like, I love third culture kids. The community needed me. Like, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in Germany. Like, why was it so hard? Why was it not working? And I'm like sitting there brushing my teeth, and I just like, I'm not a person that like really hears, like physically hears from God very often. Like, that's not ever been my religious experience.
Yeah.
And I like heard like the thought come into my head, like, now is not the time. Like, oh, little one, like, not right now. Like, it'll come, but don't, like, not right now. And I like broke down in tears, and like, I'm usually like a fairly avid journaler, and so I like went and like stopped brushing my teeth and like journaled and like wrote it all down and like called my best friend, and she was living at France in the time, so that was really convenient for time zone stuff, and was like, I'm moving home, like I'm not staying, like I'm not doing this, like just the whole big thing, and so like 180, like thought I was going to be running my own like area and stuff in Germany and living there for years to come, to like, no, I'm moving home and I have no idea what comes next in like 30 seconds.
Wow.
So that was that. Like, I called my parents. They were originally pretty unsupportive, actually, of me moving back. Like, my dad really thought that like I was making the wrong decision, which was really hard.
Yeah. Because you're like, I just built this bond with you, I love you, and then he's like,
and like, I'm an only child, and so like, it's always just been the three of us, and like, they've never not supported anything I've done, like, never.
Dang, that's a pretty heavy moment.
So the fact where Dad was like, I really think that you're making the wrong choice, I was like,
you're like, thanks, Pa.
Cool.
Yeah. Man,
gonna do it anyways.
So
that was really hard, and it's fine now. Like, it's definitely better, because by the time I moved home, like, the pandemic still wasn't better, and I would have been living. And after I got the job too, like, information kept coming out about, like, I thought I was moving into like a well-funded area with just like no kids and like a program that needed to be rebuilt. And it kind of turned out that I was moving into an area with no financial support, no committee or board, and no kids. So I was expected to completely rebuild the entire program in a pandemic. Like, and I was, it just like really wasn't viable. And like, and then none of this was told to me before I like accepted the position. So that was it. Just as it kept coming out, I was like, no, we're not doing this. So I ended up deciding to move back, and I think too, like, Fernando and I had been dating for a couple of months by that point, and I think that there was like a conception on my parents' part that was why I was wanting to come back.
Gotcha.
And it really wasn't. Like, he really didn't have anything to do with that decision. I mean, it was definitely nice not having to like do more long distance, but it wasn't why. But I think that like was why they were kind of judgy.
That was their biggest fear. Which makes sense.
No, I totally get it. It makes a lot of sense, but it wasn't really why. And then I moved back in June.
There you go.
And now I'm here.
There you go.
Doing
sitting on the pod, bro. There you go. It's always interesting to me, like, I don't know, there's one thing my mom told me a long time ago that I remember her telling it to me, and I was like, it feels like it's kind of harsh, but like, and it's something like, you know, sometimes your parents tell you something a long time ago, and then like later on, you're like, dude, that was a golden nugget, bro. Like, that was so good. But like, I remember my mom saying, like, you know, I don't ever want you to like give up opportunities for someone else. Like, you know, if you're young and you have the opportunity, like, just do it, and like, if that relationship is good and it'll work out, like, then it'll be fine. It's like, but also, I don't want you to hold somebody else back either. Like, if they got an opportunity in their life, let them take it. And it's like, but like, be supportive, and if the relationship is good, then fine. If it's not, then, you know, it's not going to work out. Cool. And I remember like hearing her say that, and I was like, what the hell? Like, it's like, what do you mean? Like, if I have an opportunity, like, I don't want to just like ditch somebody for that. Like, I realize like it's a cool thing, but it's like, it's my relationship, you know, like, that person matters more than any opportunity. And it's kind of interesting to see later on where it's like, I remember before I moved to California, actually no, before I went to camp, believe it or not, the summer I met Rachel, there was this girl that I was talking with, and we weren't dating, but we were like on the cusp of dating. And the thing is, I didn't end up dating her because I was living in Albuquerque, and she was going to be going to Los Lunas in like southern New Mexico. It's like right on the border. And so I was like, okay, you're going to be all like 3.5, 4 hours down there from me, and I'm going to be here, but like I'm going to be working at camp. And so I was like, dude, like when I come back from camp, like you're going to be gone. So I was like, I'm sorry, like I would like to, but I can't, you know, like, and I remember I actually, like, believe it or not, I found the old messages like just like about a month ago because they're all old Snapchat messages, and I was like, we actually very recently reconnected because I was like working out a lot more, and she works out a lot more, and we're like talking about like working out. Very few people want to talk about that, so it's very exciting. But anyways, so but I was looking at old messages, and I was like, gosh dang. And I remember she had said, she's like, Gabe, like, you're one of the sweetest, most kind and caring people, but you're also an idiot. Because it was just like one of those moments of like, I like treated her really well, and like I had like let things get to that point, knowing full well that I probably wasn't going to be dating her. And I was like, gosh dang it, like, Gabe, you're such an idiot. Like, she was right, bro. Like, you're such an idiot. So anyways, and then like so, you know, we had like I remember we had like this emotional goodbye, like, hey, like, I'll see you sometime, I don't know when, but like, you're going to college, I'm going to college here, I'm going to camp, but when I'm back, you're gonna be gone. So I leave for camp, basically being like, you know what, God, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, like, with culinary school. Like, I don't know if I'm going to finish it, if I'm going to go. I don't know, like, what you want me to do with ministry. I don't know what you want with my relationship. But I was like, all I care about is serving you this summer and not getting a girlfriend. That's all I care about. And then I met Rachel. Yeah. So, and then the funny thing is, I met Rachel, who is from Ireland, goes to school in Scotland, and I moved to California. So I went from I don't want to have a relationship that's 3.5 hours away to I'm going to have a relationship that's like 2,000 miles away. That's a 24-hour trip of planes just to get to you. So stupid. And I was like, gosh dang it. And then I remember afterwards, she was like, oh. She was her. And I was like, and I actually, really believe it or not, I actually, like, it was like, I completely had forgotten about that situation, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is bad. I was like, Gabe, you're such an idiot. Like, just again. Like,
it's totally people, though. Like, it all completely has to do with, like, the people and, like, yeah, it's so different.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, you know what, like, I have this opportunity in California, and I'm just going to go take it. And if this thing with Rachel works out, then great. And, you know, obviously it did. You know, we're married, like, 2020, I was going to say 3 years, but it was like, it's not 3 years, it's 2 years and a few months. But, yeah, so it's all good there. But,
yeah. I don't know. But I mean, for me at least, it's worked out really well, because like, now, since I'm going to be running Dagger Twelton's Young Life, like, it's literally the same exact position that I could have had and doing the same work that I could have done, but here at home with family, which, like, is really important, I mean, especially now, and, yeah, it's worked out super well.
Yeah.
Like, I have more community and more friends than I did when I was in Germany. I have friends that are my own age, which is great. Yeah. Because all of my friends were, like, had kids my age, and I'm like, this is really weird.
Yeah,
like,
super weird.
I don't know how to be, like, friends with someone who could be my mom.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's hard.
Yeah.
That's
or,
something.
like, also in Germany, like, at least in the community I lived in, everyone was married.
Oh.
Which, like, is fine.
Yeah.
But then, like, you're, like, the one
single person.
Yep. And so we would do game nights with, like, another couple that we were good friends with, and, like, my bosses who were married. And so it'd be, like,
two married couples and you.
Yep. Benji and Brianna and, like, our other friends and me.
Yep.
And I was like, cool. So we do, like, girls versus boys, which worked because the boys were much better at board games than we were. So we needed the leg up, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, Amy and her husband would come along, too, but, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, like, when I was in California, my direct boss, Brandon, he was a high school pastor, and I remember he was like, you're young, and you don't really know anybody in the area. He's like, in this church, there's not like a ton of young people, especially because in Danville, like it's like one of the richest areas. Like Steph Curry lives there, and like Draymond Green and like different people like that played for the Warriors. You're like really, really rich, yeah. So like that's the kind of town that like was there, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's insane. But I didn't live there. I lived with a family that was a few towns over. And he was saying like you're gonna have to get used to like making friends with people that are older. He's like because. Like, if you don't, like, you're not really going to have any friends because there's not a lot of young people here. And I was like, that's fair. And then I started a young adults group. Because I was like, yeah. And so it wasn't necessarily to spite him for sure, but it definitely was like you know what? Like, I know there's enough young people in this area that need something. And not everybody's leaving. There's a lot of people that still live at home or going to the community college in town. So I was like, no, I'm going to start something. And so that's kind of what I did. And so kind of similar to like the church here, like it was like, we don't have something for anybody there, but I was like, well, I don't know what I can do, but I want to try something. Like, and I don't know. And granted, like that one took me over a year of being there to actually start it. And because like it took a long time for me to like build those relationships and see different things. But even then that church also had much younger people compared to like the church now. So it's like, okay, but yeah, that's kind of, I think, just my desire. If like I don't see something, I like, if I can just start it and do it, then I'm just going to start it and do it. But yeah. Wait out, baby girl. My cute little doggo, for everybody who's listening, because there's no video of this, is just the most adorable little thing in the whole world. She just wanders in and out every now and then. So let me ask you, what political podcast do you listen to? Because I know you were talking, or you were listening to one the other day.
Mostly I listen to Pod Save America and Pod Save the World. So they're like Crooked Media stuff.
Cricket Media?
Crooked.
Okay.
The company is like called Crooked Media.
Okay.
And that's mostly what I listen to.
Nice.
And it's done by a bunch of people who were on staff in the Obama administration. So Pod Save the World is two guys that were in like foreign affairs and stuff when Obama was in office. They did a lot of like foreign correspondence. And then the other one, Pod Save America, is one of the guys from Pod Save the World does both. And then the other two guys on Pod Save America were like speech writers during the Obama administration. So
there you go.
And now they have like a podcast.
Yeah.
That's like mostly what I listen to.
Yeah. There you go. I only very recently started listening to Breaking Point with I don't know, Crystal and Sagar. That's all I know it as. I just heard about like them just in general, and I was like, I heard about a lot about them and different things, and I was like, I don't want to listen to a bunch of stuff because like I feel like there's so many podcasts in general that you're like a million political podcasts, and like even then like depending on which one you're listening to, it's very slanted either way, and I'm like,
and this was definitely very like Democratic leaning, like liberal.
Well, I mean, they
worked for the Obama administration, like you know what you're getting. They're liberal. They like worked for the Obama administration, like they. It's all out there.
Yeah.
You know,
no secrets. Yeah. Well, my thing is like I don't know. I'm a person who likes to try and be. At least I like to think that I try and be like fairly impartial into things. Like I just kind of like I don't necessarily want to choose a side on anything. Like I don't know. I kind of just like to.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Why does that make sense?
I don't know. You just feel like a very like. I don't feel like you're not a neutral person, but I feel like you want to be a very neutral person. Like if you were neutral, then you can help like lots of different people get along and be together and like bridge gaps and spaces. And I feel like that's something that you're really passionate about. It's like bridging gaps between like peoples and like in youth and just like helping youth come together and coexist in like a space. Yeah. But I also don't think that you're like probably a neutral person in your own right. You have. I definitely feelings.
No, I definitely have very strong feelings about a lot of things, and that's one thing. I think that's why, like, I think, like, I can listen to both sides of an argument and definitely make up my mind, but not necessarily, like, I don't want someone just feeding me one side of something. Yeah, you know what I mean, I think that's kind of where I'm like, you know what, I'm willing to listen to like anybody's perspective, even if I really disagree with it. And I might even get really worked up and passionate about it, but at the same time, like, I'm still willing to listen and have a dialogue with anybody. Like, I don't want to close myself off to one side or the other, you know, this, that. And that's why, like, I've never, like, even from a young age, I've never really liked, like, any kind of mainstream like media outlets a lot of the times, like, and I would literally, growing up, for whatever reason, I was just this weird kid who would like watch like 3 or 4 news shows when they came on. Like, I would flip between the channels just to try and watch all of them. So, and like my mom hated it. She would like be making dinner and be sitting there, and I'd be like sit there for like an hour or 2 hours, just like watching different news shows. And like I religiously watched 60 Minutes, like, and so it's like obviously there's now much more of a slant just in general and everything, but like when I was in like middle school and high school, like it was much more neutral. You know, it was kind of like it was still a slant. And I remember there was one time there was a bombing in Afghanistan of a mosque, and there was like one new, and this is when I first saw it like very drastically change. Was it always seemed like fairly straightforward, and some people had like some different perspective on it, or this little aspect they got in this one, and that's why I like to listen to all of them, because like, oh, like they have, this is a cool thing they pointed out, this is another thing I didn't know about. But then there was one story, they bombed a mosque, and like the military had said it was being used as a place to store weapons. And so it was like basically they were saying it was they're using it as a cover, because it's a religious building, so we're not doing anything here. It's like people come in and out of this building all the time, so what difference does it make? And one news channel was like, this is an atrocity, how dare they do this? And then the other one was like, well, you know, we don't know, like this is an obvious, like there's an accusation that was made that was like fairly credible, but they didn't have full proof of it, and so they did it with the intention of being safe and doing that. And it's like obviously there's some wrong and some citizens that had gotten killed, and so they both sides acknowledged that, but one emphasized this is an atrocity, there was no reason for this, and this is horrible, and one was like, hey, like there's still some nuance into this. And so it's like not quite as that. It's like, but also they killed random citizens. Yeah. Like there's no getting around that. And it's funny because nowadays they're both very much left leaning in their like kind of whatever you want to say, their presentation ideology of the news. Yeah, ideology. And so, but at the time I remember seeing that contrast, and I was like, and I remember went to my mom and I was like, Mom, they just totally like the same story sounds completely different. Like this is like kind of ridiculous. I was like, why? Like, and I was so frustrated and confused. I was like, how can people do this? What's going on? And I remember like being so distraught about this as a young kid. Like, granted, I was probably like a sophomore, you know, but it was still just like this weird sense of like this one thing that happened is taken in 2 completely different lights. And if somebody didn't watch both of them, they would never know idea. And so I remember being really kind of like impacted, I think, by that, and so I think ever since that one moment, but I think that's kind of been the starting point of a long journey of being like, well, like I hear one side and I hear the other side, and I think I just want to hear both sides of it, you know. And I think that's even like within like church culture and things like that, when I hear like there's a lot of controversy around like Hillsong and all these different churches and stuff like that, and there's a very conservative group that's like, oh, Hillsong's from the devil and all this atrocities and I hate that. I genuinely, because I'm like, are we like over stigmatizing something? Are we like applying like a certain things that a few people have done to like an entire church that like is in 3 different countries? Like,
there's a Hillsong in Dusseldorf.
Is there really? I did not know that.
Or like a compatible.
Yeah, that's cool. I know that there's one in California, Australia, and then Great Britain. Those are the only. I mean, I really don't know.
Dusseldorf is a super international city, so.
Okay. I legitimately, that's all I know about. I don't even know what their church looks like. So I have no idea
I just know that they make music.
Yeah, no, that's legitimately like most of what I know them for is like. But I also know there was just controversy about like some things that they've said or done, but like I think people oftentimes trying to be like hyper legalistic about stuff, like over apply stuff and then call anything that's outside of that a heresy, which I think is a very strong word to say. Like if you're calling somebody a heretic, that's like, those are powerful, dangerous words to like say that like flippantly is like, I don't know. So whenever I hear like all that rhetoric when it comes to like Hillsong, like I kind of have a tendency to be like, okay, like it's but then also I have to like really consider it, because I'm like, there's a wide population within the church that has these views, or at least has issues. I'm like, okay, so that can't be discarded, though. You know, I can't just pretend like that doesn't exist, because then I'm doing the opposite of like, oh, I'm just going to choose my side and then ignore that. I don't know. So that's one area where I see, like, even within the church, and just like that, I guess, desire to kind of get a broader perspective and not just listen to one thing, I think kind of permeates different things. And then I pretty much make up my mind after a while, and then I'm like, you know. But at the same time, I still like to hear like other things, to be able to be like, I didn't know about that, and that's really cool. So I don't know. I always appreciate hearing different perspectives and like definitely like that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting too, though, because like I don't know, it's weird for me that you even like watched the news in high school, because like I definitely had such a sheltered childhood, like straight up, like we stopped watching the news after 9/11 because my dad traveled a lot on planes and stuff, so my parents just like straight up didn't tell me about 9/11.
Whoa!
Yeah, no, like legit. Like,
whoa!
I did not know that it happened.
Oh my god!
For years, I was 3.
What? My dog's freaking out. Oh my gosh! For years?
For years, yeah. No, I was like probably like 4, I guess, during 9/11.
Oh my gosh!
Right? That makes sense.
Oh my gosh!
I had no idea for years that it even happened. Like, I remember the day of 9/11 because I got to hang out with my Uncle Dan and my cousins.
Yeah.
Because Uncle Dan had the job that the least important for him to go into work that day.
Yeah.
So, like, he had us at their house in Oregon City, and, like, the 3 of us got to play with Dan for the day, which was, like, we never got to play with Dan during the day. So that was super fun. I remember that because it was, like, a standout day of my childhood, but...
Wow.
No, I don't think I knew about it until, like 7... or 8, maybe, even.
Do you remember when they told you? Like, when you, like...
I heard about it on the radio. I was in the car with my dad, and we were, like, listening to K-Love.
Wow.
And they were, like, talking about it, like, remembering it, and, like, that sort of thing. And I was like, Dad, what are they talking about? Like, I had no clue.
Oh,
like,
my
none.
gosh.
Like, completely had no idea what was happening. Yeah.
Wow. That is insane. I think... You know, and if my mom, I doubt she's ever going to listen to this, like, she did not shelter me, like, very well.
Well, I don't know that it was a good thing that they...
Well, I think to that level of sheltering, probably not, but I think there's probably plenty of things I should have been sheltered from that I just wasn't, and I think part of that is, you know, my mom, she was a single mom.
Yeah.
But, like, it's interesting because I watched a lot of movies that I should not have. I heard and saw a lot of things I should not have, and... did a lot of things that I should not have a lot of times. And I think part of it was just because it was like, well, my mom's like got a lot going on anyways, and I was a mischievous kid, so I'm kind of just a mischievous person anyways. So it's just like I know I have that side to me, and I think she was kind of like, like he's just, you know, a young ADD kid who doesn't know what to do with himself. It's like, all right, cool.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
Yeah, and so this was like not really going to be anything too major, and that just kind of led to a lot of, I think, like, lack of protection from certain things. And I think part of that also, like, in terms of, like, world events. Like, I remember whenever the invasion in Iraq happened and they broadcast it. We watched that as a family. Like, it was, like, I think at, like, 10 at night or something like that. And it was, like, this crazy, like, early morning raid they just started firing. And it was, like, broadcasting live, like, the night vision of them, like, firing rockets into, like, Iraq. And I was like... oh my gosh, like, this is wild. And I remember we sat and talked about it as a family. Like, and it wasn't like, hey, like, we're doing this for this reason, but it was like, I was like, what's going on? Like, yeah, well, remember, like, September 11th? You remember, like, the flew the planes? Like, that's the people that did it. Like, we're trying to go in and get, you know, this guy, Saddam, you know? And it's like, wow. Like, it was kind of just like, it's like, you can't really fully comprehend it, but, like, you're just sitting there watching this stuff go down. Like, there was almost like a kind of... just like, well, you're going to know about it, I guess, so there it is.
Yeah,
like, oof.
yeah, no, I was very kept from all of that. Like, and my mom's a school teacher, so we stopped watching the news when, like, things like Columbine and all those started happening, because my dad flew on planes and my mom worked in a school, so planes don't crash and schools don't get shut up. Like, that was, like, baseline, because I was also a wiggy kid. Like, I was... Like,
you're a wiggy kid.
I was a wiggy kid. I was like fine when I was like a little kid. Like I was like, mom has stories of me like climbing into my grandparents' cars and like refusing to leave. So it's like,
wow.
okay, I guess she's going home with you tonight. Like,
Yeah.
is that okay? Like,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, like, when I was, I don't know, 3 or something, I was just, like, got really wiggy and, like, didn't want to be anywhere, like, wanted to be home, like, got super anxious, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, something must have happened. I could not tell you what it is.
Yeah. Just freaked you out.
Yeah, something freaked me out, and I just got, like, anxious. My mom says now as an adult, knowing that I have, like, ADHD and, like, anxiety and, like, me as a child makes so much more sense. She was like, if I'd known this then, like, things could have gone so much better.
Yeah.
But if only, so I had no idea about all those things. We didn't talk about them. I only got into politics in, like, college, or, like, even, like, current events even, just, like, in college when I became friends with my friend Maggie, because she was really into all of that.
Yeah.
And that was when I started, like, listening to, like, some podcasts or, like, reading some things and, like, broadening my horizons even just, like, a little bit.
Yeah.
And, like, learning about anything, really. Like,
So, I mean, in terms of, like, obviously, like, the whole stuff in Ukraine's going on, but, like, in terms of, like, obviously we work with kids, so with that happening and the youth of today kind of being highly exposed to everything, like, I don't know if there's even a way to shelter your kids anymore, like, to that extent.
I don't know.
Unless you, like, live in, like, no digital anything, no
it's like
internet.
a bygone era, the fact that my parents even could shelter that.
I know.
Which is crazy.
Well, that's why I was like, I don't know how you could even, because, like, for me, like, I heard it, like, in, like, newspapers, like, my grandparents talked about it, like,
we didn't get the
friends
newspaper.
talked about it, my teachers talked about it, like, it was everywhere. So that's why, like, to me, like, you not know, like, for years is, like, wild, like,
well, I mean,
absolutely
like, we
wild.
would stand up and, like, do, like, the silence or whatever, like, during our Pledge of Allegiance, we'd do, like, reference to the flag, which, but, like, because I think 9/11 happened before I was in kindergarten, like, how was I supposed to know that was anything different?
That's fair.
So it was just, like, a part of life from that point, and then I finally figured it out, like, listening to the radio with my dad.
Yeah.
But, like, that could have been real bad. Like, I could have just gone for, like, a very long time, just, like, not knowing about it. But,
I mean, do you think, like, kids being, like, exposed to, like, I mean, like, obviously I think the biggest thing now is, like, Corona and then, like, Ukraine, but, like, them being exposed to all that, do you think that's, like a negative or a positive for the kids, I guess, in, like, today's world?
I think like, if you look at the entire whole big of it, like, amount of, like, news that they have been bombarded with, I think that is a negative. Yeah. I think that them being informed and having the opportunity to make choices about knowing what's going on is a positive. Like, I think, and it depends on their age, too. Like, my high schoolers, like, we watched, I was in a history class, I was working in a history class during the beginning of the invasion, and so we watched, like, President Biden's address, and we watched, like, all this stuff as a class, so that the classroom teacher could ask questions or answer questions, like, give the kids room to process. And I think that is, especially for, like, these are juniors and seniors in high school, like, for them, I think it's super, super like, important for them to be, like, have that information and know what's going on, because it's the world that they are specifically inheriting. Like, these are, like, 18-year-old kids, you know, like.
Well, if there's a war, they're going to be drafted.
Yeah, so, well, not first. Draft goes 22 to 26 and then drops down to 18. So they do try to take the younger kiddos that are in the draft pool last. Yeah. But if there's a true war and they could end up getting drafted, and that, like, broke my heart, because one of my Young Life kids who I got to, like, work with at the high school too was telling me that, like, about, like, getting drafted and, like, that fear and stuff, and like, that's not, well, first of all, as a woman, that's something that I've never had to, like, fear or worry about. Like, the fear that I have from, like, the draft goes towards, like, friends and family that are that age. It's never, like, a fear that you have for yourself, because women, at least when I was born, couldn't get drafted. So it just breaks your heart. But there's also just so much more information that, like, I think that it's too much for them to, like, not have the choice to search out. Like, I think the kids should be allowed to, like, if they have questions about things, they should be allowed to find answers, especially like as they're getting into teenagers and like young adults. But I don't think that that some of the information that they have, I don't think it's information that should just be like told to them. Like it should be more of a choice. Like they should get to make the choice, not their parents, not their guardians. Like that child should get to make the choice for themselves whether or not they want to hear daily about like attacks on Ukraine or about like the like war on abortion in the United States, or like there are things that they should get to choose. Like
they shouldn't have to be forced to listen to certain things.
Yeah, but it also shouldn't be purposely kept from them.
Yeah,
like especially like when they're in like later high school or even early high school, they should get to start making those decisions. And because they're like, if we don't give them the freedom to make those decisions, like they're never going to learn how to like with guidance. Like how are they going to know how to make those proper decisions when they're adults? Like it's just it's jarring. But it's also jarring for them to just never have had the option to dial down the amount of media that they consume.
Yeah, that's true. Well, because I was going to say, like, I was thinking about, like, in, like, let's say 70s and 80s, like, you know, obviously there's, like the social and sexual revolution during that, like, obviously more 60s and 70s at that point, but, like, even with, like, the Cold War happening and kind of coming to an end in the 80s, but, like, there's a lot of media and, like, things that were communicated and, like, put out to kids, but they didn't necessarily have a wide array of things to even listen to or like choose from, because it was like that was it, you know, like you kind of had to just like there's stuff going on and you kind of have to like just it's just the culture of what's happening right now. There's not really hey like just don't there's no like getting around certain things, but I also think that like in doing that people kind of eventually had to start exploring different stuff, but because there was less ability to be able to do so, I think people were raised and comfortable staying within a certain box of information that they had been raised with.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's also like potentially damaging. I think it's partly why like generation above us can be really closed off about like change too.
Yeah.
There's one way that you do things, and there's one group of people that you listen to, and but I don't know. I think it's hard to know like what is good for the kiddos, and like I think just encouraging them to seek out different voices is like really all you can do.
Yeah,
like be intentional with who you listen to and intentional with why you make the choices that you do.
Yeah, I think intentionality is something for sure that like not even just kids, but just people in general is a huge like lacking thing. Like I don't know, and it's something I know I struggle with a lot, 'cause sometimes I can do things very flippantly and like I'm like, I care about a lot of things, a lot of people, but I'm also like a fairly laid back. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna just do that. Like, yeah, I'll just, you know, like I'm just gonna go to the dog park. I'm just gonna, like, if there's somebody there, I'm just gonna talk to him. Like, but like I don't have an intentionality that I'm going there. Like, and I know a lot of times, like, I think as Christians we're called to like live very intentionally and to kind of have that, like, you know, I'm gonna go here and kind of see what the Lord has. Like, I'm gonna go here and see what the Lord says, and I'm gonna talk to this person and see what the Lord does with this conversation. And I think oftentimes, like, a lot of people, even, like, mature Christians, like, can go into situations and maybe not realize, like, what God might be trying to do or say or teach. I know, like, that's, for me, like, I want to try, and I've been trying to go into situations understanding that, you know, God can use any situation and conversation and events to be able to mold and shape me and teach me things, but if I'm not intentional about listening, like if I don't have little spiritual ears that are tuned in on a fairly consistent basis, then I kind of miss a lot of what he's doing, and then you kind of get like he still keeps trying to teach you the same thing, and you're like, I think we ought to learn that. Like, it's like, well, you have to learn it again because you kind of forgot it, dude. Like, you're way behind. And so I think, like, especially with kids, that not only just like Christians, but like just people overall, there's so many things that are just out there that like you can just pick one up and you're like, oh, okay, that's one of like 20 choices that I have. That's like one of a million different things I can listen to or hear about or you know, talk about and things like that. And so it kind of, things lose weight, you know, like a 24-hour news cycle. I think that's like a big, it's a symptom of the problem of just like too much. Like you're saying, like there's almost like so much that kids are ingesting and people in general are ingesting that like it almost kind of loses its weight in a way that like allows it to be meaningful. So
I was reading too that like because of things like it left my brain. like with Corona and everything, like kids are just like constantly bombarded with information, and like the way that there's just so much information, like it changes. Here's what I want: their stress tolerance has changed. Like today's youth has such a higher like stress tolerance, like a baseline stress tolerance than like even us, and then like for sure like people older than us, like because they've basically grown up in an era where like instead of living in their like green to yellow zones for stress, their daily lives are spent in like the yellow to red zone, and so their body is just like their mental capacity for stress is just like above what ours was, and so because their yellow zone has become their green zone and their red zone has become their yellow zone, so there's like this to get them up to this place where they're like actually stressed, actually concerned, like it's such a higher level of like atrocity because these kids just their baseline is so much higher than ours ever was or should have ever been.
Yeah. So I was gonna, because it was interesting. I was listening to a podcast talking about like the anxiety and stress level of like today's kids in general, and I was going to disagree with you, but I think because in that study they were basically talking about I think it was like from kids, it was youth up to about 24 years old, but in general they were saying that kids and younger people these days actually are more sensitive to stress and anxiety because they don't tolerate as much, and so they stress out about things more. But I think what you're talking about, like they're just living at a more constant rate
it's not that they're more anxious or they're less like able to deal with stress and anxiety. It's that they're being forced to live in that danger zone their entire lives because of the like nature of like the 24-hour news cycle and things like that. So they're like living in just this your body's not meant to maintain that, and so like there are people who have lived most of their lives in like a green to yellow zone, and then like and so they're like they might be prone to anxiety, they might be a little bit more anxious, but they're like not at the level of like the youth that are like just living in this like heightened state of like anxiety. And so it does like it often like for some kids it takes like just that and they're like over the edge and like panic attacks and anxiety attacks and all of that stuff. And then there are other kiddos who like it ends up taking more to push them to that because they just get hardened. Like they just have this like hardened exterior to them, and it's well, and I think the study was saying, I think there's in, because you talk about like there's a culture of people saying like, oh, kids today are just more sensitive because like, and it's like, well, they're not actually more sensitive. It's the culture that we've allowed to be able to establish like kids to talk. And so the study was saying that it's a little bit of both, but it's actually more so just that there's like so much more stressing the kids out that they're just more stressed. Like they're just like actually more stress ridden. Like than like previous, and like in the previous generations, like if you were stressed, you didn't really talk about it. You didn't like that wasn't a thing. So there was a part of it covering up and kind of just toughening up in general. But now there's not like a toughening up thing, and so it's almost the pendulum swings like obviously way far the other direction. It's like, you know, like World War II people are like, I was in the war, shut up. Like, hey, I had to take care of all of you and feed our family and make our own food in the streets at a war garden, and like just so we could have food, and we rationed our metal. So your life isn't that hard. And it was like that hardened like post-war generation. Obviously the boomers, like they're all very hardened, and they were used to like getting the crap beat out of them all the time, and like domestic abuse happening all the time, and like child abuse and all these things that just like were normal and a part of life because they were just hardened people. And then it kind of got less and less so. You know, obviously there's different conflicts, and you know, like the Vietnam like kids that were raised in that, and then from that into the Cold War, like there's like an anxiety that's there, and there's like a war's on the brink because like war had been a part of everybody's life for the past 40 years basically. But there was only like one kind of threat at a time, really. It was like, and so now it seems like because the world's so much more connected, like instead of being a hardened exterior of like post-war people like pushing everybody like to suck it up and just be better, or like don't talk about it, everyone sucks. Now it's like, okay, well, we don't have a generation that's like super hardened by war to compare anything to, and so we're encouraging more of that. But also
there's more avenue to be able to listen to and hear more about the crap that's happening in the world. That's always been happening, but we just never knew about it. We never had to be faced with it. We didn't have to deal with the fact that there was like a war in Yemen, and there's also like a war like in Ukraine and Russia. And now we know more about NATO and the EU and how the U.S. is connected to that. And then all of a sudden there's like natural disasters in Asia and all these different places. And then now there's like famine in like Central America and South America. Like, so you're hearing about all these different things, and like it seems like so overwhelming, and it's because it is like you said, we're not meant to handle that.
No.
And it's like, and kids today have literally been raised like womb to tomb. Like, it's not going to go away all of a sudden. All this information that's just out there, like, it's not going to go away. So they've literally, from the time they were raised from a kid, they've been indoctrinated into this, like, consume everything, listen to everything, and it's like, and you can't get away from it. And if you turn it off, you're weird. Like, why would you unplug? Why wouldn't you do that? Why would you go away from what's happening? Like, you need to be informed. You need to be informed. And it's like, yes, but also you got to kind of live your life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this weird dynamic, I think, of and the study was more saying, I guess it's just the way that kids have been raised. They're just more stressed, like you said. They're living in those higher zones, and so they start experiencing like anxiety and needing to be medicated and therapy at a much higher rate than ever before. So it's kind of wild. But, yeah.
Ugh, my poor kiddos.
I know, and that's like, man, that's what, when I talk to you about like the kids and I see them like they have like friend issues and things like that, I'm just like, guys, please, like, you're here for each other, man. Like, you don't need to like have this stupid conflict over nothing, man. Like,
it's not gonna matter.
Not gonna matter. Not gonna matter.
I do understand that right now it feels like it's your entire world.
Yep.
But it's really not gonna matter.
No, it really doesn't matter. And that's, I remember my mom telling me stuff like that, and I was like,
yeah, but it feels
up.
so like egregious. For
Yeah.
your child, you're like, excuse you, what could you, an old man, ever know about my life?
Get out of here, Dad. You just don't understand my life. You don't know what I'm going through.
You never went through anything like this. And you're like, well, okay.
That's funny.
Sure. It's better if you think that.
There you go. So, by the way, were you born here in Oregon, or were you born in Okay, so
where did you think I was born?
Pasadena, right?
No.
So your parents just lived in Pasadena, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I wasn't sure if you were born there and then you guys moved, or you just moved up here.
No, so I was born in Oregon City, at the same hospital my dad was born at.
Was there an intentionality behind that? Like, that your dad was like, oh man.
I don't know.
It was just the hospital that was there.
It's just the closest hospital, I guess, because there was like, I don't know, like 24 years ago, there wasn't like as many hospitals around here. Like, that was like a huge one in like Tualatin and like, and Tigard and stuff has like a hospital, but I think back then it was, also my great aunt, I think, was a labor and delivery nurse at Oregon City, and I think that was just probably where, because my mom had a C-section, though, so that's probably where our PCP had privileges and stuff, and could be like around, I don't know, maybe. Because it's right across the river, because our PCP is in Westland. So it's probably just, it was right up there, so she could get privileges and be like present while because my mom had to have a C-section. So, yeah.
There you go.
It was actually really funny. When my mom got pregnant with me, they were not living together at the time. They were like geographically separated. Yeah. Because my dad got a new job in August, and my mom was a school teacher. And my mom was like,
that's hilarious.
In Oregon, my dad got a job in Oregon.
Wow.
And they're living in Pasadena. And my mom was like,
dang.
It's August?
Yeah.
That's not gonna work for me.
Yeah.
So my dad moved up. And he moved in with his mom in Salem and was working up here in Portland. And my mom moved in with her parents in, like, Orange County area. Yeah. And kept working at her place. And my mom was just ended up pregnant during that year. And moved up here, eventually when she was still pregnant with me. But, yeah. So they were not living together when she was pregnant with me. So.
Yeah. Because you're talking about, like, your mom getting a C-section, and just thinking about, like, people being pregnant, like, or women being pregnant, people.
Humans with uteruses.
I just, like, humans with uteruses, yes.
For being inclusive here, Gabe.
Is that right? There you go. For all three people that have listened, including myself.
No,
I was thinking about this the other day. about the feeling of having a human being growing inside you.
I'm not about it.
Like, that freaks me out. Because I was like, thinking about like...
They push their little hands out of your belly.
I know.
I'm not here for that.
It's wild.
It's like an alien.
Yeah. No, it literally is like this.
It's born and you're expected to love it. And it's a stranger. You've never met it. You don't know what their personality is going to be.
Very true. But I also know, like, it is something that almost every single parent has told me, like, that father and mother that I've ever talked to is like, when you like, it's like there's a difference between like the baby being like inside you and then like it being born and you're holding it, because
that
like,
makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like, and to me, like, I don't know, I dream about like well, for one, I don't even know if Rachel and I can have kids, and that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. But like, God willing that I'm even able to have kids with Rachel, or however we can have kids, like, but being able to like just hold a kid. And oh my goodness,
hello.
She's like, hey,
I'm your new best friend.
Yeah, a little curious, smothering you right now.
Like, yeah, I am your baby.
Yes, she is.
Hi.
I know.
Oh, you're really smothering me now, man.
Hey, down.
There
Thank you. I know you love her.
Come sit next to me. On top of me is
a little bit much. Hey, no, Akira, no. Leave her alone. I love you. Yes. Thank you for smelling my beard. But like, I just think about that moment where I am like holding a tiny little baby, and it's like, that's my responsibility. No one else is taking care of it. It's not like, because it's not anybody else's baby. It's mine. Granted, it might be my wife's, but like, it's also just as much mine as hers, and I have a responsibility to do that. And it's like this like weight. And so, funny enough, I'm doing Caleb's wedding for him and Daria, my students that visited.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I don't know if I told you, but they are pregnant currently.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, they are currently pregnant. She is due sometime in late summer, and they're having a wedding in June. So
she's going to be very pregnant.
Yes. Oh, she's already showing a lot. She was she had like a little bit of a bump a few weeks ago, and I saw a picture of her literally from like last week at their like baby shower, or their gender reveal party. I don't know what the difference is anymore. There's too many parties.
Well, I think if you're smart at this point, you just do them together.
Yeah. Or you could do two separate ones because you get more gifts.
That's so many parties, though.
It is, but
so much planning. It
is a lot of planning. Or you could just be low key like Gabe and say, "Hey, we're gonna have a thing here, and then I'm gonna throw a blue or a pink egg at the wall. And we're gonna," and it's just like, "Now I have to paint over that wall, Gabe. Dang it!" But so essentially, they are gonna be getting married. But I love Caleb, but he's a very laid back guy, and even right now, like it kind of set in a lot for him whenever they first like kind of found out that she was pregnant. And so he dropped out of school. She's doing online school basically as long as she can, and she's working and he's working. But like, it's funny because I was talking with him, and Daria was like, "Yeah, I know. I basically just like go to work and I come home, and then I like basically go to sleep and I get up the next day and I go to work. Like, that's all I'm doing." And then Caleb's like, "Yeah, like I get up and like I go out and I play D&D till like 2 a.m, and then I get up and I sleep for a little while, and then I get to like go and visit Daria, and then like I do this." And I was like thinking about it, I was like, dude, you're not gonna, like, first of all, she's carrying a baby, so she has it way harder than you ever will. And not only that, whenever that baby's out, there's no playing D&D, there's no going out and going snowboarding, you don't have a life for at least a year, if not 2 years. You don't get to do anything. Like, that is your baby. And you don't get to just go out with the boys and, like, have a good time. And I'm just, like, I'm waiting for that moment for him to, like, actually, when he has to face the reality, like, this is your baby.
It'll be interesting. we have a friend who has a kid who I still don't feel like has fully grasped that. It's really interesting because, like, he'll go out with it's a friend of Fernando's, and so like he'll go out with the boys and like do things, and like they're out doing stuff, and I'm like, okay, where's kid and wife? Like, what's okay? Going on, or like this was my favorite though. They like had like a lake day, and I went along, and he like wife had been like, okay, like, you need to watch the kid today. So he like took the kid to the lake. And so we're all just like, he's like in his little swim diaper, just like passing kid around from like one video to the next. But,
it's interesting. I was I just don't know. Like, for one, I've seen people at different stages in that life. Like after having their first kid, either it's their first one and they're a few months old, or it's like they have their first kid and their second kid's only a few months old, and some that just had their kid, and other parents that have like grown kids that all of a sudden have a baby. But like, I know seeing parents at different stages in different places, like all over, like not the world, but like just like multiple states. And being like, you know what? I don't know what I'm gonna be like when I do that. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna react. Cause like for me, like I'm a very like passionate, intense person, and when I care about something, I care a lot about it. And like, I don't want to be a helicopter dad, and I don't want to be like someone who's like my daughter's like out there like trying to do her thing, and I'm like, yeah, because I'm just like so excited. Yeah, like that's the thing. I want I don't want to be that person who's just like smothering, but I'm also like, I don't want to just let you hang, I don't want to let you just like fend for yourself either.
Yeah, like where's the balance of like loving father but like not smothering.
Yeah, so I just think about that, but like the experience of being a mom I know is different, and the experience of being a dad is different, and it's just going back to like kind of being pregnant, like I know I'm never gonna experience that, like the weird reality of that, but
there's going to be like a being potentially inside of me at some point, and I don't love that.
I remember one of my friends, Maya, we were in middle school talking about pregnancy and all the different things, and we talked about literally like the embryo and everything like that growing inside you, and she literally like she was standing there looking at a screen of it, like kind of like who's just playing a loop. And like she's standing, and she's a tiny girl, like really tall. She's like very thin, like short, and she just goes. She puts her head on her stomach like this, and she goes, "Wow, that could be inside me." And I was like, "Holy crap!" I was like, "That's weird." I was like, "That's so weird." But like she had like this look of like, "That's so like cool." Like I don't know. For her, she was like, it was like almost this excitement of like as a woman, like. The only other person who can ever experience that is another woman. Like that's like, and I was like, I don't know what that's gonna be like at all. Like that's an experience. Like certain things you cannot know what it's like for another person, and that's one of the things I'm never gonna understand. It's like I don't even understand what it's like to think as a woman and like experience life as a woman, because it's like there's different things that we go through and experience, and it's like I can't fully understand that, and it's just wild to me. And like I like. It's weird because I'm like, well, how can I not understand? But it's like, Gabe, you're never going to be a woman, so you never could. So it does not matter. Like it literally makes no difference. It's like I've never had to live with the existential threat of like another man hurting me as like someone who might be like that's like I've never gone to a place being like, I wonder if I'm going to be like safe from like my fellow. I mean, granted, I do think about other men hurting me, but like that's more of like I think I have a chance of taking them. Yeah. Like there's no like. Hey, like I probably don't have a chance against like most men, or like I would like most men I can handle myself against, but like some men I know I could just get crushed by, Yeah. And it's like I don't fear being around a woman thinking she's gonna hurt me, unless she's like a gigantic person, or she's like a jujitsu master, or some kind of person who has a weapon. Like besides like those external things that I think would be attached to it, I'll be like, yeah, most women I feel fine around. Like there's not like this weird. Like anxiety you have just being around the opposite gender.
I guess it is weird because there's just like things that are in place that you just like have in place. Like when I was dating in college, Travis has my location and has had my location. And like if I was going on dates, like I would tell Travis where I was going and who I was going with. And like my roommates knew as well, but like they were other women. What were they gonna do? Yeah. So like there's men in my life that had like my location and contact information and like information of where I was going, who I was going with, and like when I was expecting to be home. Yeah. Like Katie, one of my roommates, and I had like safe words and like phrases for like if I needed to call her, needed to talk to her. Like, there was things that she knew if I asked for certain things, like I wasn't safe or I was feeling unsafe, and she needed to like call Travis or call like Riley, another friend of ours, and like put things in motion to like make sure that I was feeling safe. Or like when I was living in Europe, like walking home from trains at night because we would finish youth group and like late and I catch trains. It was about like 45 minutes by train back to where I lived from where my bosses lived, and so like getting off the train, like calling like someone because it was like 11 o'clock at night and I'm walking through the city by myself. So like who can I talk to, who can I be on the phone with, like to like make sure that someone knows where I am. there was a church that we worked at. Oh, this was the best thing about the pandemic was I didn't have to go to this church anymore. There's nothing wrong with the church itself. The only way to get there was to take a train to the bottom of the hill and then walk up this hill in the dark in the winter because it's dark at like 3 p.m. We're further north.
Yeah.
And there's no sidewalks. So I hated that.
Dang.
And so I would, like, call my mom or, like, I had a friend who, and he's still my friend, but he worked for the main office at the time. And so I'd call him and he was, like, he was doing, like, basic ministry things. And I'm like, this is part of your job now to talk to me and make sure that I don't get hit by a car or abducted into the woods.
First thing
I'm walking through the woods to this church in the middle of nowhere. Like, make sure I don't get abducted. Yeah. And it was like a fairly, like, used trail. Like, people would go, like, horseback riding down it or, like bike riding or jogging. But... Still, yeah. Well, yeah, but someone on a horse could abduct me. Just because they're on a horse doesn't mean that they're safe. Yeah. Like...
Yeah. That's the thing, like, I think about, like, in general, like, walking around, like, even in a foreign city now, like, I feel like I've been overseas enough in, like, different places, and I'm like, it's okay. Like,
yeah, like, I'm comfortable when it's daytime, and I'm not walking through a forest.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, at night, like, during the day, like, totally fine. At night, even as a man, I'm like, someone's gonna rob me. As a man, I think, like, somebody's gonna, like, attack me with a weapon, or attack me from behind. Typically, like... Other men don't, if you're trying to accost a man, you typically don't, like, face him head on to be like, hey, get your defenses ready. Like, it's usually, like, it's the opposite. And granted, even, like, most robberies anyways happen from behind, even with women, because people that are doing that are usually cowards anyway. So they're, like, trying to be sneaky. It's like they're not the most, like, confrontational frontal person. But anyways, so... I always, like, I have tons of anxiety, like, walking through, like, looking, like, checking behind me. Like, even here, like, I mean, at my house, like, I'm just very on edge about it. So, granted, that's childhood in Albuquerque, realized not a safe city most of the time. Did not have a healthy exposure to the world, mostly. Everything was, like, fear-based and, like, someone's going to rob us, someone's going to attack us, something's going to, take me from school, someone's going to kidnap me, like... Every possible worst thing that someone could have said was like, that's what I got told for my whole life. And on top of that, in the local news is always like, someone got murdered, someone got shot, the cops did this, someone robbed this bank, someone burned this. So, like, I already am on edge as, like, who I am. And then, like, Rachel, being who she is not that way. Because she was, like, comfortable with college, and she's like, oh, yeah, it's a college town. We just walk everywhere, and everybody walks everywhere. And, like, even when she was younger, like... And it was weird to me when we were in Belfast the first time I visited there. Like, it was the middle of, like, school time for the kids. It was, like, just after Christmas. And so they were just getting back to school. And there's all these kids with their school uniforms on. And they're just, like just one kid by themselves, or 2 or 3 kids just walking...
Oh, I've watched, like, 7-year-olds take trains to school by themselves.
Yeah! I'm like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing? Like, that child is by himself!
That is, like, a really interesting difference between, like, America and Europe, though, is the protection of the child.
Yeah.
Is, like, so different. Like, in Germany, like, I've watched school children misbehave on trains, and I've watched adults that are not related to that child yell at them. Yeah. And, like, correct their behavior, because... It's so much more of a collective view of, like, the child and the protection of the child and, like, the raising of the child. And, I've been yelled at by old women for not wearing, like, scarves or, like, a hat. They're like, you're gonna catch a cold. Like, where's your scarf? Like, where is it? Are you okay? Like, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
You're like, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
I forgot it. It's okay.
That is hilarious.
But it's just such a different, like... That is, like, a very American, like, thing, too. Like, very American, like, European cultural difference of, like, children being allowed to take themselves to school. Yeah. Like...
Wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That's insane.
They have Shoko tickets.
Shoko tickets?
What's that? It's chocolate. I don't know why it's called a chocolate ticket.
Okay.
But they're Shoko tickets. That's the student ticket. And they just get them.
Oh, gotcha. Huh.
And then that's, like... Or maybe you pay for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you just get it for being a school kid. Because, like, most kids have to take the... I think, at least in where I was, they have, like, a lot of smaller schools. So you might not necessarily go to school, like, right by your house.
Yeah.
But it just
Interessante.
depends.
Well, Suzanne,
Ugh,
I think we should wrap this up, girl.
probably should. It's been a while.
It has been. It's been, well, you got here, we've only been recording for about 2 hours, but you...
That's still a while.
That's a long time.
Only 2 hours.
Yeah. But I love you, dude. I appreciate you coming. You need to get some rest because you look like you're about to fall asleep.
It's been rough.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to talk about you a week later, but
yeah.
I am also going to head out and see Alina. So,
oh, yay.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to meet with her, like just having some like focused individual time for her, that she gets like this, not just like the people that she lives with, but like she actually gets something that's like for her at a certain time, at least. So I do that about twice a month or so on a Saturday. Cool. So we're gonna go eat ice cream today.
Oh, perfect.
So that's good. That's gonna be the fun thing for her. Last time I hung out, we like worked out because I was gonna be doing like training at the gym and kind of like helping her with that a little bit, and kind of with a lot of anxiety and kind of like I think a lot of what she's dealing with is like control as a foster kid. Obviously, like you don't have any control, and then sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, and everything's just in limbo. Your whole life is in limbo until like you get fully adopted by somebody, and then until that point, which I know she's not fully adopted right now. Like you're just a foster kid that can be there temporarily. That's it. That's all you have, and you might be there a long time, but until you're fully adopted, you can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere, but you also might leave tomorrow. Like it's like this weird. I do not envy foster kids at all, and like so that's why like I know the hard situation for him, and I think she's just now kind of fully coming to terms with like a lot of like her past things like that, and so she's lashing out a lot, and I think she's wanting control and wanting to have her way in some form or fashion, and I think like just not having control over anything is really hard for her. So that's why I was like trying to do like physical stuff. Like you can control you and your body. You can work on these things. You can like control these weights, or you can control like how you're moving. You can control your breathing and your mind, and like how you're doing all these things and how they all work together. Because if they're not all together, you're going to either hurt yourself or it's going to suck. And so I think just kind of having that environment for her. And it's the last time it worked out, we actually had a really good time. And she was like, she came to school, or not school, Sunday, the next day. And she was like, I was like, are you sore? She goes, yeah, I'm like really sore. And I was like, dude, we really did anything, bro. But it was a fun time. But I think I also want to get some time to just sit and talk. And like, because it's, you know, obviously you can like work out and do stuff and talk a little bit, but like you're both huffing and puffing, you know, it's like kind of hard to like sit and be like, hey, so tell me about this. And like I think guys are a little bit easier with that, but I think like if I don't know, I think guys typically feel more comfortable if there's something,
when they're moving, when they're like,
or there's something external to focus on, and then like there's like something external happening, but then that conversation is almost a side piece to it, you know. I don't know, that's how, like, you know, like sitting around a campfire, like for whatever reason guys just start sharing stories around a campfire for whatever reason.
I love it.
Some like archaic like thing from when we were like developing, like I don't know, like, hey, I'm a caveman. Yeah. We're just still like stuck in that, but you know, men are solo learners anyway, so it happens. But yeah, so that's kind of I want to try and get some time just to sit with her for that, so I'm gonna do that, and then she has dinner with her family tonight, so
perfect.
But yeah, anyways, cool. Well, Real Talk Podcast episode 3. Let's bang it out.